Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is story about what if Naruto would release and council bashing part 1. Before I start, please do support for more amazing content and comments for part 2. Do consider to subscribe my channel and share my video to your friends and check out the description as well. Let's start the video. Alley of the End. When he set out with the team to bring Sasuke back, Naruto was hopeful and fully prepared to do whatever it took to bring his misguided friend back. As always, he had given it all he had, without any regard for his health and the enemy he had to face off against, doing everything that was needed and more to get to Sasuke. Caring not for the fatigue after the chase and fighting members of Sound 4, Kimimaro and then even a full squad of Sound Chuninins that Orochimaru had dispatched for the support of Sasuke, with the latter Naruto being forced to face off alone. As the result, after all of this, Naruto had arrived exhausted and tired, having been forced to fight several members of Sound 4, Seiken, Yukin and Kidomaru, when his teammates were taken out and had caught up to him, not to mention the said squad. Sasuke had taunted Naruto for his fatigue and what appeared to be inability to even fight, as he had sustained a few wounds already, and yet Naruto had proven him wrong. Without any care for his fatigue and injuries, Naruto attacked Sasuke and proceeded to fight the empowered and merciless Uchiha survivor, and although he was outclassed and outmatched, Naruto still didn't make it easy for Sasuke. For a few instances, it appeared as if he would be able to win. But those illusions were dispelled when Sasuke had completely stopped holding back and instead went on ahead with killing blows, burning Naruto and trying to break his neck and spine. The pain and agony were enough to make him black out for a second, and only Fox's chakra kept him going, for his own reserves were terribly low. As much as Naruto was hopeful and foolish, even he knew that he was not going to last long, especially with the way Sasuke was going at him, and he was right. The moment Sasuke had created Chidori, Naruto knew that his luck had ran out because he had nothing to offer against it, and as for Fox's chakra, it had stopped supplying his organism. He did not know why or how, but that did not matter to Naruto at that moment. What did matter was that his supposed best friend had ran his killing technique into his chest, right into his heart, and that was it for him. Is that all you had in you, dope? I'm disappointed, but at the very least, I now have what it takes to beat Itachi. The same eyes that Naruto heard Sasuke speak, as he looked with his dying gaze into the eyes of Sasuke, seeing that they were changing in form, before his eyes had finally closed. Having removed the last thing that stopped him from obtaining the power that was rightfully his, Sasuke felt like a chain that stopped him broke, and freed from it, he discarded Naruto's corpse without a care in the world, tossing it into the river below. And after that he finally departed for Orochimaru, without even noticing as two figures watched the whole thing transpire, their gaze directed towards the floating corpse of one of the last Uzumaki. When they saw his supposed sensei finally arrive and pick up the corpse, the pair departed without a trace, knowing that it was still too early to do anything. Several hours later. Office of Hokage. Hiruzen Sarutobi, the elderly third Hokage of Konoha, was sitting in his chair with a grim expression on his face as he read the mission report for one more time. To say that it was a failure would be an understatement because it was a complete disaster, one of the worst possible outcomes that he could have imagined. Their last Uchiha was now gone from them, with Kiba Inuzuka dead and Neji Hyuga on the brink of death, with others receiving various other wounds and injuries, with only the Sand siblings managing to save them. However, what was even worse than that was the fact that Naruto Uzumaki was dead, presumably killed by Sasuke himself, and this single fact threw such a wrench into his and fourth Hokage's plans that it completely destroyed it. Even Orochimaru's invasion with the betrayal of Suna was not as damaging to the grand scheme of things as this fact, for Hiruzen was able to survive thanks to Jiraiya being near him and evening out the odds against Orochimaru. He was still weakened and injured, hence why Naruto and Jiraiya had set out to bring Tsunade back, with Jiraiya also testing out Naruto to find out how strong and good he was. When they returned and third Hokage was healed, Hiruzen learned that Naruto was far better than he had expected and wanted him to be, even with all the measures taken to hamper his growth and emergence of his talents. They didn't need Naruto to be powerful, intelligent and mighty like his father, nor was he even meant to live for long, for he was nothing more than a diversion against their enemies, a bait with only a small portion of the nine-tailed fox sealed in him. Because of his disposable status, as well as for the sake of secrecy and the plan that he, Jiraiya, Minato and Kushina had made, Naruto abandoned and left to fend off for himself against the vengeful and cruel people of Konoha, who were subtly directed towards Naruto as the prime reason for village's sufferings. A lie and a cruel one, but a necessary one for the survival of the village and its future prosperity, and he had gone even further when he had the boy's mind forcefully altered and changed to make him far more susceptible and easier to control. It had to be done when Naruto showed signs of unnatural maturity and genius that Minato possessed, and this was far too dangerous to be allowed to remain, hence why Hiruzen had his Anbu make sure that Naruto was altered in a way that suited him. Now, however, he was regretting his decision a little, wondering if he had allowed him to be as smart as he was, would he have survived this fight or not. Letting out a tired sigh and smoking his pipe, Hiruzen put down the report and closed his eyes before speaking up. "This is far too soon," he stated before opening his eyes and looking at his former student Jiraiya. "Are you certain that the twins still haven't mastered Kyuubi's chakra?" No, and no matter how hard they had tried, and whatever Minato and Kushina had done, they couldn't control Kyuubi's chakra, and what's worse, because of Naruto being dead, the rest of Kyuubi's soul is either going to return back to the rest of him, or reform somewhere else 9 years later as a completely separate entity. Jiraiya stated while shaking his head. "You shouldn't have sent that brat after the Uchiha, old man. We both knew that with the cursed mark and his training from Haddock, Naruto stood not a chance, so why did you dispatch him?" "Because that is what the council had demanded, and unless we wanted to reveal to them the fact that we had lied and played them like fools, I had to go along with their demand," Hiruzen said with harsh tone. "And how do you think they would take to the fact that Minato and Kushina are alive and well in the capital, serving as daimyo's personal guards and also training the real Jinchuriki, while their village suffers and toils? We've already made preparations in case it became known," Jiraiya reminded him, with Hiruzen shaking his head to him. Orochimaru and his invasion had changed that, and if before the people and the council were far more accepting of this sudden revelation, now they were made more extreme and angered, and they are far less ready to believe what we have to say. Hiruzen stated to him before blowing his pipe. As much as they had hated Naruto's existence, thanks to us, once their immediate jubilation subsides, they'll not be happy with the fact that they've lost their supposed greatest weapon, the nine-tailed fox, which had been in our village since Hashirama defeated it in Madara. We are going to have to talk to Minato and inform him about what had happened. Chances are, though, in a few days he'll know what had happened, but in the meantime, what will you say to the council about the mission, and what will you do about the Uchiha?" Jiraiya asked of him. "I lay the blame with Naruto, since he did fail in capturing Sasuke Uchiha and preventing him from going to Orochimaru. The council will be more than happy to make him the scapegoat, and there is nothing to indicate that Shikamaru Nara and others will try to stand up for him," Hiruzen stated. "As for the Suna siblings, I doubt they'll risk the newly re-established alliance between Suna and Konoha just to preserve the memory of the now-dead failure." Jiraiya nodded to him about it. "And what about Uchiha?" Toad Sage asked of him. "Leave him be, for now. We can deal with him and Orochimaru when we have the chance, for now your priority is to monitor those Akatsuki you reported the last time. We have far too little intel about them, and since it is clear that they are interested in tailed beasts, they'll no doubt be after Menma and Natsu once it becomes known that they are alive," Hiruzen stated to him. "Focus your efforts on uncovering what they are really after and what are their members. Utilize the source I have inside of them, if you have to." "Will do, but what about?" At that moment, the door into the office opened up, with Tsunade walking inside, forcing Jiraiya and Hiruzen cease their discussions, for Tsunade wasn't in on their plan. "Hey there, Tsuna. You are looking as beautiful as ever," Jiraiya jokingly said, though the moment he saw her grim look, he shut up. "Tsunade, what's the status of the injured?" Hiruzen asked of her. "Taoji will make the recovery, but the extent of his injuries and internal damage will put him out of service for a few months, but Hyuga didn't make it," Tsunade reported with tired and detached expression. "And as for Naruto, I think we already know what had happened to him, Haim. No need to talk about that failure," Jiraiya said, as he didn't want to discuss it, before Tsunade grabbed him by his collar and brought him close to her eyes. Tsuna, what are you? How the hell do you have the gall or balls to talk about him like that, you worthless piece of shit?" At that moment, Tsunade let out her rage and anger by punching Jiraiya in the gut, nearly forcing him to puke and drop on his knees. "You took that kid under your wing, taught him that damned Rasengan, made him actually believe he had a chance at becoming the Hokage, and now you call him a failure and dismiss him like a trash," Tsunade screamed at him and then kneed Jiraiya in his face before preparing to beat him to death had it not been for the Anbu appearing all around her. "Tsunade, that is enough." Hiruzen ordered her to stand down, with the Anbu disappearing. What Jiraiya said was wrong, but what is done, and there is no point in talking about it. Tsunade wasn't satisfied with how he spoke and instead strode to him and looked him directly in the eyes before talking. "Strange how you don't seem all that concerned with the fact that Naruto is dead, more annoyed at this, like an inconvenience, as if his death threw a wrench in that scheme you and Minato had concocted." Tsunade's words were enough to shock and shake Hiruzen and Jiraiya. "Don't look so surprised, sensei. I'm not that stupid as to not figure out a few things, and Minato with Kushina weren't as hidden as they like to believe in the capital. I am a Senju, and my clan had made many friends at Daimyo's court." "Since when did you know about them?" Hiruzen asked of her. "Since the moment they've arrived, and when I heard about the kids and the Nukyubi Jinchuriki in here, I put the two and two together, and that is why I had refused to come back to the village when you first asked me." Tsunade stated to him with anger. The only reason I came here was because of Naruto, not because of you or this perverted idiot. I came here because I couldn't stand seeing him manipulated and used by you anymore, not after he had put his life on the line to save me. I had hoped to help him, at least fix all that damn damage you have done to him, but now he is dead because of another one of your fuck-ups, and I'm done here. What do you mean by that? Hiruzen asked of Tsunade before she threw at him her old and battered headband that she had kept as a reminder of her service to the Leaf. Your headband? Tsunade, you can't mean. I mean it, and this time, there is no way I'll be coming back here, not after you've confirmed my belief that nothing good will come for me from this village. All this village does is take away those that are precious to me, first with my father and your teacher, then Nawaki, uncle, Dan, the whole of Senju clan, then mother and now Naruto. Tsunade's memories rushed back to her and she fought off the tears before turning away from Hiruzen and walking away from him. Consider this my complete resignation, old man. Don't worry, I won't spill the beans on that plan of yours. But do know this, that if you or any of your cronies come after me, I'll send them back to you in pieces, is that clear? Tsunade turned back to look at him for a second before Hiruzen nodded to her and allowed her to leave. Ugh, are you really going to let her go just like that? Jiraiya asked of him as he picked himself up. There's nothing that we can do to stop her, and from what we've seen, Tsunade not only has recovered her fighting spirit but grew even stronger than she was before. There is literally no one in the village who can take her down, and even if I send an Anbu squad after her, they won't be able to do a thing to her. Hiruzen sighed as he understood that things were getting even worse for him and Konoha. Better to let her just leave in peace and simply keep an eye out for her. I know Tsunade her whole life, and while she is worse of a gambler than her father Lord First, she is not someone to talk about things like these, especially if it would hurt the village in the process. She may hate it, but at the end of the day, she won't do anything to hurt it. If you say so, sensei. Jiraiya said with a pained sigh before the two returned to their earlier discussion. Later that night. Konoha's morgue. Konoha's morgue was quiet that night, and although there were no windows in this particular section, even from here one could hear the celebrations that were erupting throughout the village. For the misguided and ignorant villagers, this was the day of the celebration, for the demon who had plagued their lives was gone, killed by the hands of the Uchiha Sasuke. In the wave of jubilation and intoxicating elation, the people have completely forgotten the fact that said Uchiha had defected from the village and became a traitor. The council and elders, along with Hiruzen, reason that Orochimaru is controlling Sasuke, hence he is simply listed as a prisoner instead of a traitor and isn't placed in the wanted lists. Such hypocrisy was nothing new for the village or its leaders, and the two visitors who walked almost unopposed into the room where the dead body of Naruto Uzumaki was laying could only scoff at the way this village treated the boy. Especially the man felt indignation at the way these arrogant bastards acted towards the blonde boy with the attitude and actions that made them into true monsters. Even in the days of the Sengoku period, there were certain lines that one shouldn't cross, and this village and its people, they've crossed many of them with Naruto. With a scowl present on his face, he spoke up more to himself than to his companion. These people, this is exactly what I told Hashirama would happen if he went along with his ideas and listened to his brother. The people of this village have no will of fire, for they do not see the need of it, since in their mind the will of fire is what makes them so powerful, a belief in their superiority. The man spoke with an irate tone, before casting his gaze down upon Naruto's still body. I hope you are watching this, Hashirama. And if you do, take a good look at his boy and see what this village has degraded into. Your dream has rotten away and became a hollow husk, thanks to Tobirama and his cronies. It almost makes me want to end this whole thing right now, while they are addled and weak, just to finally put an end to this travesty. We are not here so that you may vent your rage, Madara. A regal woman with unnatural beauty, dressed in white and with flowing long golden silver hair and fiery golden eyes, spoke to Madara Uchiha, revived and restored to his prime by her will, forcing him to look to her. Remember why we are here. Oh, I do remember, but I can't help but wonder, for what reason are we not take our vengeance? Of all the people, you especially have more than enough reasons to wish for the devastation of this village after it had abandoned and betrayed the Uzumaki clan, your direct descendants. Madara stated to her, with the woman calmly looking at him before he motioned to look at Naruto. Take a look at this child and see just how much Konoha and its people actually value our bloodlines. They did not even bother to sew up his wounds and fix injuries, they did not even bother to clean his body or prepare a burial. They've simply extracted all that could be taken from him, and now they either will throw to the dogs or burn him like trash. And towards these people you want me to be tolerant, Amaterasu? I said nothing of the tolerance, only that you do not forget about our purpose here, and starting a war here right now would only cause unneeded distraction and commotion. Amaterasu stated to him as she gracefully walked past him and looked with sad eyes at the dead body of Naruto. Of all of my children, grandchildren and descendants, very few possessed his kind of potential and such pure heart. He could have shaped the world in ways that not even my mother or Hagoromo could dream of, and instead this world, this travesty that Hagoromo allowed to happen, destroyed him, as it did my children, simply for defying it. And this is the clear indication that Hashirama had failed with his vision, the moment he allowed his misplaced idealism blind him to simple facts of human nature. Madara huffed as he thought about it before he sighed. But then again, it was once a dream that we both had shared, at least until he allowed Tobirama to take Suzuka from me and forgave him for it. And if only he had done just that, but he also took our son and deprived him all that made him Uchiha and Uzumaki, making him into a perfect heir of his will of fire. Madara practically spit it out of him. Will you abide by the conditions of our deal, Shadow of the Uchiha? Amaterasu asked of him, with Madara nodding to her. For all my faults, I am a man of my word, and when I give it, I keep it no matter what. Of course I shall train him and teach him all I have learned. Uchiha, Uzumaki, Senju and all other jutsu and techniques, I'll give it all to him. Madara assured her, before casting a look at Naruto, before a small smile came upon his face. Even though his mind and body were damaged by this village, he still showed great promise and power in face of adversity. Once I am through with him, he shall be someone truly worthy to dance with me on equal terms. Let us hope that shall be the case. Now, let us be on our way. Amaterasu told him, as she created a portal into another dimension, while Madara created a wood clone and had it transform into exact copy of Naruto that was here and take its place, while Madara picked up Naruto's body. Will this copy not be found out? It shall be sufficient, especially since none of them will have any reason now to check if it is him or not. Madara assured Amaterasu, with her nodding to him and the two departing this realm and leaving Konoha. A different dimension. Later. Groaning and wincing from his body aching and being stiff all over, Naruto groggily opened up his eyes and looked up, seeing a wooden ceiling of the house that was clearly not his. Moving his head a little bit, Naruto managed to find out that he was not in his own house, but in the room that was far better than the one he owned. In fact, it reminded him of those houses where clans live and where was never allowed to step into, or at least that is what Naruto had thought was where people had lived. Confused by the change of surroundings, he managed to lift up his body and sat on the bed, looking around and finding that he really indeed was somewhere he never have been. It took him a few seconds to realize that he was actually alive after he sat up and looked around, and once the realization hit him, he looked at his body, examining it. Much to his shock and surprise, he found out that there were no scars or marks injuries left on him, in fact he was feeling even better than before. Even more so, it felt like he could breathe and think far better than before, like something was stopping him, or rather, slowing him down. Getting acclimated to his new state, Naruto noticed fresh clothes neatly put near him, consisting of a black shirt, underwear, pants and shoes. Once he finished up putting these on, Naruto carefully left the room, finding himself in the hallway of what appeared to be a mansion. After wandering around for a few minutes, he found an opening outside and went into it, and once he was outside, he saw beautiful rolling plains, with flowers and grass for miles he could see, as well as fields of rice and more, with the sky as clear and beautiful as it could get. Naruto was so transfixed on his surroundings that he didn't notice someone who had been expecting him for quite some time now. So, you have awakened. Madara, who sat on the grass with closed eyes, spoke up, startling Naruto a little, before he opened his eyes and got up to look at him. I expected you to wake up a bit later, but it seems you are made of tougher stuff than I thought. Not to be rude, but who are you, and where am I? The last thing I remember, I was. Naruto spoke up, before trailing off and looking around. Am I actually dead? Naruto asked, once his mind caught up with his mouth, with Madara chuckling to him. You were dead, yes, but now you are back to living, thanks to me and your ancestor. As for your other questions, this is not heaven nor hell, so you may breathe easy, but a different dimension. You may think of it as a completely different, separate world from the you came from, created by the one who had revived you. Madara explained to Naruto, who listened to him with clear look of shock. And as for who I am Madara Uchiha, once a leader of Uchiha clan and one of the founders of Konohagakure and the man who named it. But to you, Naruto, I am your grandfather. Naruto's eyes widened up as he backed away from the man for a second. Am my grandfather? But you don't look anything like me, and I'm Uzumaki, not an Uchiha. Even more so, Third Hokage always said that I was an orphan and that my parents had died when I was born because of the Kyuubi. Naruto exclaimed in shock. This doesn't make any sense. Perhaps for now it does not, but soon enough, you will understand everything, but for now, let's see what the person who brought you back has to say. Madara told him, as he and Naruto turned to the portal which opened up, with Amaterasu stepping out of it and looking at Naruto with a small smile, before she spoke up. Hello Naruto. I apologize for where you are and the confusion and I hope you are doing better than you were. Amaterasu spoke with a kind and warm tone, one that Naruto was definitely not used to. Please, allow me to introduce myself. My name is Amaterasu, and this is my realm, known as Takamegahara. Madara and I had brought you, or rather your body here, to restore it and bring you back to life after you were slain by that boy, Sasuke, I believe is his name. Naruto looked at her with surprise when she spoke like that. So, I really was dead then, Naruto said with a realization in his voice before he looked at Amaterasu. But how did you manage to bring me back to life? And for that matter, why? Am I like one of those zombies Hokage, like the ones Orochimaru used against Lord Third? At that moment Madara scoffed again. No, you are not one of those reanimations that Third's fallen disciple had managed to summon, and even those were at best only pale imitations of their real selves. Had they been real, neither Konoha nor possibly the Land of Fire would be left standing. Hashirama alone would have been more than enough to destroy that village without even breaking a sweat. Madara stated to Naruto. So no, you are not one of those pale imitations of living beings. Instead, you brought back via the power of a far more powerful ninjutsu, known as Rin Rebirth. And as I am sure you have noticed, you were brought back without all those impediments that were forced upon your body and mind. You mean like I can think better and feel like I'm more myself? Naruto asked, with Madara nodding to him. Yeah, I've noticed that it's like I'm finally sober or something like that and I can think better, but what the hell had happened to make me like I was? We will get to that eventually, for now it is time you learned who you really are, Naruto. Madara told him, with Amaterasu speaking up again. I am sure Madara had already told you that he is your grandfather, and he is correct, for he is your paternal grandfather. You hold in yourself the blood of Uchiha, Senju and Uzumaki, Naruto, with your paternal grandmother being from Senju clan, while your mother is from Uzumaki clan. Amaterasu spoke to him, with Naruto looking at her with shock. And as for me and how I brought you back, I am a being that is not human in nature, though once I was close to those. I am what you could say a kami, or a being that had achieved divinity, though before that, I was a child born from a union of a celestial princess and a human lord thousands of years before your birth. I shall explain more later, but the most important thing for you to know is that you, Naruto, are one of my last direct and true descendants, one of the last of the Uzumaki. You are my ancestor. But you would have to be really old, I mean older than Madara here. Naruto exclaimed in shock, with Amaterasu nodding to him. Like I said, I was born in days before Shinobi and before humanity had chakra. I am a being that is immortal and can live for infinite number of years, but before I had ascended, I had a family and had many children. Those children would be the foundation of what would come to be known as Uzumaki clan. Amaterasu told him, before a look of sadness crossed her face. For millennia, my children and descendants lived in peace and prosperity, away from the wars and destructions that were brought by Shinobi, but now my family is nothing but a dead memory, with what remains having forgotten their roots, or actively shunned them in favor of their own ambitions and wishes. So if you are a kami and have all this power, does that mean that you actually know who my parents were? Naruto asked of them, with Madara and Amaterasu exchanging looks, before Madara spoke up. Yes, we do know who they are, Naruto. However, as much as you wish to know about them, I must warn you that this truth will hurt far more than you think, and you may wish you had never heard it. Madara told him, with Naruto turning to him. Now, do you really wish to know about them and the truth about yourself, what heroes in Sarutobi and others have hidden away from you? Yeah, I want to know the truth. Naruto said with clear determination. Very well then. Madara simply stated, and then he and Amaterasu began to tell the truth to Naruto. Instead of raging and denying everything, Naruto simply stood and listened to them as he learned of the fact that his life had been nothing more than a carefully orchestrated diversion and a ploy to distract the enemies of Konoha away from his parents and siblings, the real holders of Kyuubi's power. He heard how he was a necessary sacrifice for the prosperity of Konoha, as Madara had called it, left by his parents and overseen by the third Hokage. His entire purpose was to play the role of a Jinchuriki, be a scarecrow for the other villages, while his siblings were being trained and raised to be what his parents believed to chosen champions of the world. Apparently, they were following a prophecy that entailed the coming of a great hero, a child of destiny, that would change the world of Shinobi, and both Minato and Kushina, as well as others who knew of it, believed that it was one of their children, but not Naruto. Out fear for the man who had unleashed the 9 tails before and the many enemies that fourth had made, it was decided that they would go into hiding in the fire capital, while training and teaching the children they took with them. And as for Naruto, his fate was sealed, and he was left as a pawn in their grand game, one that had to suffer from misguided hatred and prejudice of the people. Naruto listened for hours without saying a word, daring not to interrupt either of them, sitting unmoving and still, seemingly lost in the thought and act. It was only after they had stopped talking did Naruto finally decide to speak up. So my parents were alive, and they knew about what was happening to me all this time. Naruto stated, not asked, with Madara nodding to him. And fourth Hokage, Minato Namikaze, is actually your son, but then why doesn't he look like you and what about his Sharingan? Minato took after the looks of my wife Suzuka Senju, who was a cousin of both Hashirama and Mito, through her Senju father and Uzumaki mother, having possessed golden hair akin to what Amaterasu has. Not long after our son was born, several members of Senju clan, with the support of my other enemies, had attempted to kill me. They had failed, but as the result, my wife Suzuka she died protecting me from a hidden attack, while our son was secretly taken from me, make it look like he too was killed. Madara said with a barely contained anger in him. It would be long after my defeat at the hands of Hashirama that I would learn that in reality it was Tobirama who had orchestrated the entire thing, and that he took Minato. After my first death, Tobirama had studied the Sharingan and learned how to block it permanently, and so he eliminated Minato's ability to possess Sharingan, but wasn't able to get rid of his mother's genes and my other genes, hence his great prowess in all things related to ninjutsu in battle. Then why he isn't known as Senju? Naruto asked. Because in Tobirama's eyes, Minato didn't deserve to be part of his clan, hence he simply placed him into orphanage as another one of many orphans. Madara answered to Naruto. As much as I may despise and hate Tobirama for what he had done, at this point I cannot bring myself to call Minato my son, not after he had trampled over all that Suzuka had cared and valued. And what about me then? If he can't have Sharingan, does that mean I can't too? Naruto asked of them. No Naruto. When I reincarnated you, I had removed all that had stopped you from possessing it. As the matter of a fact, you should have all the genetic prowess of Senju, Uzumaki and Uchiha at the same time. Amaterasu stated to him. However, there is even more that you possess in you, for I used both my chakra to restore you, but also my blood to strengthen you even further, since your body was drained of both completely. In the way that all of it fused with you, it inadvertently had made you my child in blood. Amaterasu stated to Naruto, who looked at her with surprise. So does that mean that I have no blood of those two in me? Naruto asked of her, with Amaterasu nodding to him. After all I had heard just now all I have to say is good riddance. You are taking this way better than I had anticipated. Madara admitted. After all that had happened to me, what would be the point of trying to cry and rage about it all? I've long since learned that it never leads anywhere, at least that was the case before my mind was altered. Naruto told him with maturity that once was part of him. I died and was freed from all of the bonds to Konoha and them, and after all I heard now I've got no doubts that it is for the best. Still, I don't get it, why did you bring me back from the dead? Because of me, Naruto, or rather because of someone who had been using me and the shinobi since their creation. Madara stated to him. After my defeat at the hands of Hashirama, I had managed to cheat death and hide away, making plans to change the world and enact a plan that would finally bring peace to it. Unfortunately, it was only after my death that I had learned that all of my ambitions and plans were means for an ancient entity to come back to life again, and my dream was only an illusion. You see Naruto, the world as you know it came to be largely thanks to my brother Hagoromo, who is remembered as the Sage of Six Paths, and whose sons had began the ninjutsu and paved the way for shinobi and endless wars. But before all that, he and my other brother, Homura, had fought and sealed away our mother, Kagaya, a celestial being that can be considered a progenitor of all chakra in this world. Amaterasu explained to Naruto. However, even from her sealed cage that is the moon, she still somehow directs events to bring her back. The pieces of her power, the Biju, are the key for it, and now there are people who are actively looking for them, intending to collect all of them, form thanks to Madara and his pawns. The Akatsuki? Naruto asked of them, with both nodding to him. Yes, they were to be the pawns in my plan to bring me the tailed beasts, and after my death my subordinate Obito, who assumed my name and identity, carried on with the plan, though I now suspect he has decided to bring about his own vision. In reality, he doesn't even know the fact that all he is being used by Kagaya to bring herself back. Madara stated to him, before taking a sigh. It was only much later that I learned all this from Amaterasu, along with the truth about Shinobi, myself and everything that had been happening. Learning that all my life had been merely a play in someone's scheme and a continuation of ages-old war between siblings, I've decided to help and finally break that circle, and with your help I shall accomplish it. And how do I fit in all of this? Naruto asked of them. I am able to track down the spirits of my brother's sons, Indra and Asura, and I found out that you, Naruto, was the next reincarnation of Asura, while your friend Sasuke is Indra's reincarnation, hence why you were so drawn to fighting one another. Thankfully, after your death, your spirit was freed from Asura's, and you were reborn without him, so you are now fully free. Amaterasu told him with a small smile. However, the Akatsuki and their puppet masters are still at large, and they are trying to bring my mother back to life, and if they succeed, it would spell disaster for the world. Had I been able, I would have destroyed them myself, but I cannot for I am charged with protecting our world from others like her, who are eyeing up our world as a price. Because of that, I have decided that I need someone who can fill the role of the protector of our world on it and also someone who could restore our clan. Hence, I chose you, Naruto. Me? You mean you want me to stop the Akatsuki and whoever is behind them? Naruto asked of them, with Amaterasu nodded to him. But I'm just a 13-year-old genin who only knows a few jutsu and without the fox, I don't have anything all that special in me, plus I've not ever been trained by anyone. Well, that is nothing that we can't remedy, can we? Madara smirked a little at Naruto. Amaterasu had revived me with the express purpose to train and prepare you for what is going to come next, and I intend to do just that. You possess in you the talents and potential of the 3 strongest shinobi bloodlines, and your personal potential alone is enough to possibly make you someone on the same level as your former father Minato, if not someone more powerful. Under my tutelage and training, Naruto, you shall be a shinobi that even Hashirama would not be able to defeat. Judging by the tone of his voice, Naruto figured that Madara was already itching to get started. Well, I'm all up for the training, especially under one like you, but that could take years, and I doubt that Akatsuki would be sitting idly by. Naruto remarked. That is not something you need to concern yourself with. You see, in this realm of my creation, I control everything, even laws of existence and reality, like time. Right now, I've changed the time flow in here in such a way so that one day in our world would equal a year in here. Amaterasu stated to him, with Naruto looking at her with surprise. You will have more than enough time to learn everything there is to learn from Madara and me, and by the time you are done, you shall leave this realm not an untrained genin, but the strongest shinobi in hundreds of years, possessing the strongest bloodlines in history all at the same time. And all you want me to do is stop the Akatsuki from reviving Kagaya? Naruto asked, with Amaterasu nodding to him. Yes, that is all I ask. After your training is complete, your life is yours and yours alone to choose what you may wish to do, even if it means you decide to not do what I ask. Amaterasu told him, surprising Naruto. It is not my wish to make you obey my will or do my bidding akin to a slave. My only wish is to give you means to make your own path in life, Naruto, and to ensure that you will be able to make your life into whatever you wish it to be. Do you really mean that? That you will train me and that you won't make into your pawn or something like that? Naruto asked, almost unsure of it, with both nodding to him. Yes, Naruto, I swear upon my wife's memory that I shall train you to the best of my abilities. Madara assured him. So do I swear, Naruto, that as your ancestor and now mother, I shall help you make your own way in life, yet not be someone who forces you to walk the path you do not desire. Amaterasu stated to him, with Naruto having tears in his eyes and the rippling effect coming upon him, finally unlocking the first stage of Sharingan. And from then on, Naruto Uzumaki was finally reborn anew and began his new life with his mother and grandfather, training and growing as the son of the sun and heir of shadow. 8 days later in Shinobi World. Land of Water. Mei Terumi grit her teeth as she fended off another assault from the loyalist Kurigakure forces, 4th or 5th this day, and this was only past midday. She, along with her forces, consisting of rebel shinobi, ronins, mercenary and local samurai and militia who had sided with her, were on the brink of collapse and exhaustion. She reflected on the status of her combined forces and couldn't help but sigh at the fact that they had a very bad couple of months. Just half a year ago their combined forces would have been enough to defeat Yagura and the many warlords that now plagued the Land of Water, but the problems arose rather quickly in her forces, as infighting between nobles, samurai and shinobi made them vulnerable and indecisive. As the result, Yagura and his forces were able to subjugate a majority of the petty warlords and local governors, forging an army that was a far greater threat than had they been disunited. Not for the first time Mei cursed at the weakness of Water Daimyo and his court, who had allowed their country to slip into chaos and war again, and who at this point were nothing more but figureheads and puppets in hands of Yagura. It wasn't long after Yagura had taken full control of those forces that he started dealing Mei a defeat after defeat, leading to mounting casualties and even defections by the nobles and samurai. Those who left her were more eager to profit from this chaos rather than put an end to it, and yet those that stayed were among the most hardened and battle-ready warriors of Land of Water, and so instead of wasting their lives, Mei and her co-commanders decided to retreat and make their stand on the grounds of their choosing. Initially, the retreat went as planned, and even though they had many wounded and injured, as well fugitives and refugees, they were able to relocate to the northwestern island of Land of Water without a problem. It was here that the problems arose, for it turned out that Yagura was informed of their destination, had made a beeline here with his veteran troops, while also using Land of Water's fleet and samurai to block any potential escape route. Mei's forces were not ready for the battle, with most being tired and exhausted by the long march, as well as having many injured and ill, not to mention refugees. As much as she and others would have liked to have found a way to get out of there, they were surrounded and the only option left was to fight, and so they gave battle to Yagura's forces, which initially went in their favor. But the moment Yugura unleashed his tailed beast and went on a rampage, the tide turned and her forces were forced to pull back and go on the defensive near the walls of the city of Kamakura, which housed all of the injured and the refugees. Beset on all fronts and fighting to their last, Mei fought the hardest in her entire life, but a long day of exhaustive combat took a toll on her and her senses dulled a little and she missed one of Kiri's jonins making his way to her with intent to kill her. Before he was able to connect his kunai with her throat, a swift slash by a blade ended his life and Mei looked at the person who had saved her, finding a tall woman with long dark purple hair and purple eyes of unmatched beauty, dressed in a dark suit of armor, with her long tachi brandished out. "Thanks Raikou. I owe you one." Mei thanked Raikou Minamoto, leader of the samurai forces and one of the greatest warriors in the land of water. "Think nothing of it, Mei. I simply returned the favor from the last time." Raikou responded before she moved and slashed two more attacking shinobi. Yugura is either getting hasty or simply stopped caring about his men. He is throwing them at us without any thought or consideration. He has not been a man who cared for such things for a long time now. Mei responded as she casted water jutsu and blasted away a group of attacking loyalists. He seems to have simply stopped caring for the casualties and wants this war over as soon as possible. Mei said before she kicked another jonin away from her before she and Raikou prepared for another assault, yet instead saw how loyalist forces began to pull back. They are pulling back. Why would they do that when they have the advantage in numbers in the initiative? Raikou asked aloud before she focused her vision on the far-off ridge and saw the reason for why they pulled back. "Mei, look," she said with a hollow voice and her face paled, with Mei soon also gaining a paled complexion. "Yugura, he is insane. Is he really going to use a Bijudama on us?" Mei asked aloud as she saw the fourth Mizukage in form of the three tails gathering chakra around his mouth for an attack. "He'll not only destroy us, but also level this entire area and turn Kamakura into ashes. We have to evacuate everyone." Raikou spoke, snapping out of her shock and fear, but it was too late as Yugura launched his concentrated ball of chakra at them. The ball of volatile chakra traveled fast, leaving a trail of flattened earth underneath it and squashed people who were unfortunate enough to be on its flight path. The whole battlefield went silent and still, and most looked at the incoming attack, yet Raikou and Mei felt a vibration of the air coming from above them and looked up, seeing something that they least expected. Yet before either of them could say a thing, the tailed beast bomb connected and exploded. The power of the blast knocked out the air and the sound, creating a pillar and wall of flame, dust and smoke that turned the entire glassy plain into a wasteland and engulfed the city and its products. This was already seen as the victory in the eyes of the loyalists, yet when the dust had settled and smoke cleared, Yugura and his forces were greeted with a sight they did not expect to see. The massive moving ethereal wall of fiery red chakra separated the rebel forces and Kamakura from the blast, protecting them all from the blast. And near Mei and Raikou stood the caster of this mighty shield, and they looked in shock and awe at this man. He stood at 181 centimeters, possessing a mane of gold and silver with slight spikiness, which was made into a tail behind him and reached the middle of his back, with bangs framing his fine and attractive face and fiery golden eyes, which had a swirling ripple tone in them, with 6 tomo in each of them. He stood dressed in a crimson samurai-like armor, with a white coat above, complemented with black shirt and pants, along with shoes, with symbol of Uzumaki on the back of his coat, with 6 tomo dotting it along the line of a swirl from center to the edge. On his left hip rested a sheathed long straight sword with a white sheath and black and white handle, from which was seen to come a glow. The man turned his gaze towards the two leaders of the rebels and spoke up in a carefree tone. "Are you okay?" He spoke to them as the two stood transfixed and trying to figure out what was going on, as well as mentally admiring the looks of this man. "Sorry if I had startled you, but it looked like you people needed some serious help, so I've decided to lend a helping hand." Why yes, we are fine, thanks to you." Mei, with a healthy blush her cheeks, collected herself and spoke up. "Why yes, your help is most welcome, though I fear we do not know who are you and why you landed us your help." Raikou too had collected herself and spoke up, with the man smiling to them and answering. "I'm Naruto Uzumaki, and I've decided to help you because you really looked like you needed it and so I landed you a helping hand." Naruto told them earnestly as he turned around and looked at the incoming forces of Yugura. "Well, looks like that mad Mizukage of yours isn't too happy with you still being alive. If you do not mind, please order your forces to pull back into the city while I clean the house, so to speak." Naruto prepared for the battle, with both women looking at him with shock. "Are you serious? There is over 3,000 shinobi with at least 6,000 samurai over there, you can't possibly beat them." Raikou stated, with Naruto simply smirking a little, with Mei having a feeling that he was fully serious. "Trust me, I don't intend to let them win today. Now, please move your forces out of the battlefield." They are tired and exhausted, with many injured and traumatized, so you would do better to take care of them instead of engaging your enemies right now. Naruto told her as he dispelled the chakra wall and began to walk towards the incoming enemy wave while his eyes returned to normal. Raikou, let's not argue with him on this. Mei told her, gaining her attention. This man, this Naruto, I had a look at his eyes, and this wall of chakra that saved us, they looked far too much like Sharingan, only distinct, unique in their own way. You mean he could be an Uchiha? But why then introduce himself as an Uzumaki and dress up like that? Raikou asked aloud as she saw Naruto start to speed up towards the incoming wave of enemies before creating 20 shadow clones and spreading them into the line. Is he really going to? In the next second, the 21 Naruto Uzumaki clashed into 1,000 of Kurigakure veteran shinobi and they went through them like a hot knife through air, dispatching the incoming enemies with same ease as a man picks up a fallen leaf off the ground. The clones and the original engaged the enemies without even stopping their run, swatting them away with kicks and fists, not needing more than 2 to deal with them before they reached the center of the formation, and then they stopped. Surrounded and outnumbered, the newcomer and his clones then went to town at the enemies. Mei and Raikou ordered a general retreat of their forces while they observed as the literal one-man army was making Kurigakure's finest look like hapless lambs in front of the storm as Naruto was crushing the enemies with his mere taijutsu skills. They looked with shock and awe at the way this man fought, moving like he was in 3 places at the same time and not fighting, but beating the enemies with such ease that made them sorry for those who dared to stand in his way. And at the same time, there was not just simple power and might in his attacks, but also grace and even elegance in the way he moved, akin to a dancer who partook in a dance of death and enjoyed it. The 2 women couldn't help but feel a blush coming upon their cheeks upon gazing at this man, and not so pure thoughts began to creep into their mind. Soon enough, Naruto and his clones were practically through with their enemies, and the moment he was about to finish off most of them, he sensed how another Bijudama was launched at him. Forgetting completely about his enemies, Naruto reached for his weapon and then unsheathed it, unleashing a powerful wave of energy that he sent towards the incoming ball of chakra. The 2 attacks met in the air, and in the end, Naruto's proved to be more powerful and destroyed the Bijudama, splitting it into 2 and forcing it to explode. Once the dust had settled, Naruto stood outside the field with most of the enemies either dead, injured or running away from him, while he looked up at the giant turtle-like monster who looked down upon him, with both of them now on the same ridge. Are you so eager to dance with me that you are prepared to destroy your own men just for that? Naruto asked of him with complete calmness as he gazed with his eyes at him. Their lives are nothing but a resource I have to use as I see fit. A resource that has failed to deliver on what I had wanted and couldn't even destroy those traitors, along with you. Yugura spoke with the voice of his tenant, with Naruto simply looking at them with a neutral expression. I don't know who you are, but you have made a grave mistake coming here and saving them. Nobody who had seen this form has ever survived, and I'll make sure that you won't be an exception. I'm afraid you won't get a chance to correct that mistake, nor realize that all this time you were nothing more but a pawn in the hands of a misguided fool. Naruto simply stated to him as his own Sharingan eyes came to life and then changed to their Manjikyu Sharingan pattern. You say that none who gazed upon your tailed beast form had ever survived. Well, then I shall answer with one form that is exactly the same way. And with this, fiery red chakra exploded from his body and immediately began to take shape and form. Right before the eyes of the rebels and loyalists on top of the ridge, towering over the battlefield and surrounding area, is a giant made out of fiery red chakra, a warrior with a horned Kijin head and dressed in ancient armor and clothes. But beads in form of Magatama around his neck, with a small shield on his left hand and a large straight blade in his right hand, and from inside of its forehead, Naruto looked down upon the 3-tailed beast. Mei and Raikou had thought that at this point, nothing could effectively surprise or scare them, but now they understood just how ring they were. My grandfather and teacher would berate me for using this against such a lowly creature like you, but after all your crimes and atrocities, all you deserve is utter despair and merciless death. Naruto told him as his Susanoo moved his arms with a blade above his head. This Susanoo is the ultimate expression of destruction and death, and it has come for you, 4th Mizukage. And with this said, Susanoo swung the blade down upon the 3-tailed beast. The 3-tailed beast though is not considered to be the strongest of the tailed beasts, but it is considered to be one of the most well defended and protected, thanks to its shell which is said to be able to withstand even lava. However, Naruto's Susanoo and its sword were nothing to scoff at either, and it could split the earth and heaven, and nothing could stand before its might, and 3-tailed beast wasn't able to withstand its might. His hard shell split upon the contact of the blade, and then all of his form was divided, and then the ridge and the ground beyond it, creating a ditch that stretched for miles until it reached the ocean, and then began to fill it with the water. The ridge was split into 2, and in the middle of the divide was the form of Yugura and 3-tailed beast, dissipating and disappearing like a mist after the morning wind. Once the dust was settled and the outcome was revealed to the world, the loyalist forces in a mere instant found themselves on the losing side and without their leader, while the rebels, just mere minutes beforehand were on the brink of defeat, found themselves victorious in the war they considered all but lost. And it was delivered to them by a man, or perhaps even a kami, that in one single strike ended the terror and tyranny of Yugura, and now he had quite a few things to explain to those who wanted to know. Hours later. Kamakura Castle. After the battle was over and now deceased Yugura's forces surrendered to Mei and Raikou, right after they understood that they stood no chance against Naruto and his just impossible power. It took them hours just to sort out this entire mess, and even now, they were not yet fully done with the process, only through with the major things, like securing the commanders and nobles, as well as distribution of the prisoners and such things. The rest Mei and Raikou decided to leave to their deputies and other commanders, while they headed to Kamakura Castle in the center of the city, which now became the temporary hospital and house of refugees and wounded, as well as the place where Naruto headed right after the battle. The two women expected to be celebrating or resting, but instead of doing anything of that sort, he went on ahead to treat the wounded with medical ninjutsu, with his clones doing the same thing, having spread around the hospital. When Mei and Raikou saw the massive hospital and many clones of Naruto and himself at work healing and restoring the injured and battered people to full health, they once again were amazed at him. Without asking permission or being told, he just did what people needed and did not ask for a single thing, instead earnestly working and healing their people. They watched in shock as the nearly dead shinobi and samurai alike were brought back to life by Naruto and his incredible medical prowess. Both women could not help themselves but grow even more in admiration with Naruto, as well as admit that he is as good of a healer, if not better than Tsunade Senju is. They had wanted to discuss certain things, including him, but when they saw that he was fully focused and engrossed in his work, they decided to wait until he was available and left him a message. Once he was finished with the work and received the message from Mei and Raikou, Naruto headed straight to them, finding them in what used to be Lord's private study, joined to his private quarters. There he found the two ladies having changed out of their battle garments into more comfortable and form-fitting garments, with Mei donning her usual blue dress, while Raikou decided on a purple kimono, with both having cleaned themselves after battle. Once all of them were settled, Naruto conversed with the ladies, revealing to them much about himself, from him being a grandson of Madara Uchiha to the circumstances of his death and rebirth. Some may question him for revealing such sensitive things to complete strangers, and while it was fully reasonable for Naruto to withhold or lie about it, but his entire first life was a lie and charade, and he had grown an aversion to lies. If he could tell the truth, he would do so, and from what he saw from Mei and Raikou, as well what his instinct and senses were telling him, he could trust them, and so he did. The two women listened and only asked him questions from time to time, in order to clarify a few things, but other than that, they did not interrupt him in any manner. After hours of talking and discussions, Naruto was finally finished with his tale, and after taking a sigh and leaning back on the sofa, he spoke up. That about covers it up. After my training was complete and I had mastered all I had to learn from grandfather, Amaterasu opened up a portal to this world and allowed me to leave. Naruto told them. Though as it turned out, she was a little off with her directions, and so I ended up right near your battle, and so I decided to intervene, knowing what was going on. You could have easily had slipped away or stayed out of it, yet instead you got involved like that, risking your anonymity, just because we were in danger of death. Mei asked of him, still finding it a little hard to believe in this, with Naruto nodding to her. Yes, because that is how I am. Can't sit away something that is wrong without fixing it. Naruto admitted to Mei. All of this, and to think that Goddess Amaterasu is actually your mother, and even before all that Raikou said as she processed all of that in her head, before collecting herself and looking up to him. Naruto, if you do not mind telling us, what are your plans now that you are back in our world? Do you intend to take revenge upon Konoha and your parents for what had been done to you, as well as to your clans and family? In all honesty, I do not really know what I want to do. Aside from dealing with the Akatsuki, I've not really made any other plans, and from what I've heard from Madara and Amaterasu, tracking them down right now would be a waste of time, since most of them if not all will be underground and too spread out to deal in one stroke. And given the fact that the Three Tails is dead and will take at least 3 years to reform, I guess that means I'm either going to have to walk around and look for them or find something else to do. Naruto said, as he thought about it, not missing a shared look between Mei and Raikou. And as for Konoha and my parents, I did think about it, but after years spent in Takamagahara and talks with my mother, I came to a conclusion that it's not really worth the effort and time, plus it would only make things worse for other people. But that doesn't mean that you have forgiven them for all that they had done to you, am I correct? Raikou asked of him. Naturally, while I'm not all that interested in destroying that place and everyone within its borders, I'm not going to be forgiving them for all that had been done to me. I just don't want to get too engrossed in petty revenge and vengeance. Naruto answered. Now then, since I have answered your question, could you please answer one of my own? Am I to assume that you have come up with certain plans for me, and if so, would you care to share them with me? You are quite a perceptive man, aren't you? May asked of him with a small flirtation smile. With the appearance like yours and the way you saved us, while also ending our war, can you blame a woman for getting a few naughty ideas? She asked of him while showing just a little bit of her hip to him, with Naruto not falling for this. Ideas is all well and good, but the moment someone decides to make those ideas into plans that involve me without my consent is when I get not so friendly. Naruto told them, with May understanding what he meant. I am sure you can understand my defensiveness, given my past. Of course, Naruto. Please allow us to assure you that May and I did not intend to do anything of the sort. Raikou assured him in a polite tone. We did wish to make you a proposition, if wished to hear it. Well, you were earnest with me so far, I'm all ears. Naruto told them. Thanks to you and your actions today, we had finally been able to end this war, but while it is ended, there is still the matter of rebuilding and restoring our land, and the war hasn't been merciful to our country, not just Kurigakure. In short, we are currently the weakest land in Shinobi village, with most of the provinces and areas of land of water in disarray and chaos, making us a perfect easy target for our enemies and other countries. May told him in a serious manner. May, Raikou and those who had supported us didn't fight this war just to see our country destroyed in another, and with the losses we've sustained and all but complete collapse of the government of Daimyo, we won't be able to win against any major nation or a coalition of those. It will take time and much effort to rebuild, and in the meantime, we need to show others that if push comes to shove, we can defend themselves. In other words, you need some serious extra firepower to show to your enemies and make them think twice or thrice before invading, am I correct? Naruto understood May perfectly, with the two women nodding to him. While I am quite proficient in shinobi arts, after my first try at being a shinobi, I am not all that eager to become someone's subordinate, even someone as beautiful as you two. Even our beauty will not compel you to submit. Are you one of those men who like to play hard to get, Naruto? May flirtatiously asked, with Naruto smirking a little. No, I am just a man who sticks to his principles no matter what and doesn't surrender in face of adversity or seduction. Naruto stated. And besides, something tells me that a man who so easily succumbs to such incentives is not all that worthy of the attention of one like you. I quite agree. Men like you are far more attractive to the women like me and Raikou, stalwart and loyal in their beliefs and principles. May admitted with a smile to him. After what you did here, the whole world will know about you in mere days, if not already, and they will know about your power and strength you hold. What Raikou and I wish to propose to you is that you help us protect the land of water from our enemies, not as a shinobi, but an autonomous protector of sorts, and equal to us in status. In exchange for your services Raikou has agreed to cede you Kamakura, its surrounding lands and offer you the pledge of all its people. Naruto was quite seriously surprised by this proposition, instantly turning his head to Raikou, who merely nodded to him. My family had been owners of this island and province for generations, however this war had saw the death of all my clan members, save for me, so I do effectively own this land. After your display of power and saving the people in the city, as well as what you did here today, many start to see you as someone sent to us as a savior by the heavens, and given your origin, there is some truth to it. Raikou told Naruto. I am prepared to give you Kamakura and its people and acknowledge you as their lord but, in order to ensure your new rule is legitimate, you will be required to take me as your wife. Raikou said with blush and small stutter, surprising Naruto even more. Raikou, I do not have any intentions to force you into any sort of arrangement like this, and I'm certainly not looking for an opportunity to take away your freedom and what belongs to you. Naruto immediately told her. Why yes, I understand that, and no, I am not forcing myself into anything I wouldn't consent. I am already of the age where I should have been married off to a man, but I refuse to be sold off like a pig on a market and I resolve to choose the man with whom I would spend my life with. Raikou said with a deeper blush, causing Naruto to blush as well at the implication. Oh of course, I do not mean to force myself upon you, or to force you to do anything a husband would be expected of. If you would prefer, the marriage would purely a formality without any sort of responsibilities or duties, aside from ceremonial ones. But I am quite sure you can see it clear as day that our dear Raikou would not make such an offer if she didn't see you as more than just some political asset. May told Naruto with a bit of a flirtatious voice, with Raikou not denying it. She is just a bit shy to admit that she, like myself, are finding ourselves quite fascinated and enraptured with you, Naruto, and we wouldn't mind become more than simple acquaintances or friends. Naruto was positively stunned when he heard it, even more so when he realized that their desire is genuine. I will be honest with you and say that my first experience with romance was it was not quite a good one. The girl I was crushing on saw me as an annoyance and often showed it in a quite violent manner, more often than not punching me just out of either annoyance or because I was too mouthful in her eyes. Naruto admitted, recalling his experience with Sakura. After all that had happened, I'm not too comfortable with such things, and seeing both of you taking such an interest in me, is this really okay with both of you? I wouldn't want to become a cause of discord between the two of you. Mei and Raikou exchanged looks and stood up before moving to his sofa and sitting either side, gently taking each of his hands into theirs and holding them. It is very sweet of you to ask of this, Naruto, but you need not worry yourself with this. Raikou and I know each other quite well, and we've already established that sharing you wouldn't be such a big problem. Mei assured him as she leaned a little closer to him. While Raikou claimed the spot of your wife, there is nothing wrong for a lord to have a concubine. In fact, it is quite expected of him in our society, and I can live with such a status, for I see you as the type to treat all your women equally. Like I said, if you wish, our marriage would be merely a formality, and you may take whoever you wish to bed, should you find them to your fancy. Raikou said with dignity, but she squeezed his hand a little stronger. However, I do wish for us to be more than mere formal partner, and for you to see me as a proper wife and lover. I am not opposed to sharing you with more women, but only if they truly care and love them, and they are not opposed to this kind of relationship. I don't know what to say, this is happening so fast, and Naruto was quite shocked with the situation, but Mei put a finger to his lip and spoke in a caring and warm tone. You don't need to say anything. We understand that all of this is sudden and surprising for you, and we are not demanding an answer right now, and should you refuse our offer, please know that that doesn't mean that we would be averted from you. Our affections to you are not related to our offer, Naruto. Mei assured him, calming him a little. If you wish for this, then we will take things slow, step by step, because we too want it, and while we do find you quite irresistible, we wouldn't be so cruel as to force you into something you are not comfortable with. Mei and we too do not have the best history with romance, so we would be exploring this along with you. I promise you that we won't treat you like that girl you told us about, even if you are going to annoy us, I would never lower myself to mistreat you in any form or manner. Raikou assured him as she looked in his eyes. So, if you wish we shall be in your care. At that point, Naruto closed his eyes and thought about it all for a few minutes before opening it up and speaking up. Alright, I agree. Naruto said, pleasantly surprising both women. However, I have certain conditions in addition to those that you've set before. Very well, name them. Mei immediately said. First, I don't want to be a simple figurehead and do nothing if I am to be a lord and let Raikou do all the ruling. I want to be able to help you govern this realm, and I want you to take part in it, for it is your land and I am marrying you, so I wish to support my spouse no matter what. Raikou was surprised by this and the determination, making her blush even more and feel her heart pound even faster. I mean to do good for the people of Kamakura and Land of Water, so I will rely on you to teach me how to help them and you in governing. Of course, Naruto. I will do my utmost to help you in this. Raikou promised him with a smile. Second, I want you always to be honest with me, even if it means hurting me and saying hurtful things to me. I do not want to hurt you if we are going to be in a relationship, so if I am doing something wrong to you or hurt you, please, do not hesitate and just tell me about it. Naruto asked of them, with both Mei and Raikou surprised and touched by this request. And finally, I want you to not forget about yourselves and put yourselves before everything else. As your lover and consort, it is my responsibility to take care of you, and I shall do my utmost to accomplish it, but I do not want you to simply go along with all I do. If you do not like something, if you have something to tell me or something like that, or like I said before, do not hesitate to tell. That is all I am asking of you. Mei and Raikou looked at him with surprised expressions before they softened their gaze and smiled to him. Those are quite severe conditions you put upon us, my lord. Mei said in a playful manner. It will be quite a challenge to comply with them, especially seeing what a selfless and comforting lover we now have, but we will try. Mei said as she leaned her head upon his shoulder, cuddling a little with him. I shall do so too, my husband. Raikou told him as she repeated the notion and gently laid upon Naruto's shoulder, with him allowing it to happen. For quite a while he and his new girlfriend simply sat like this in silence, enjoying a moment of closeness and intimacy that it brought to them, content and happy with what they had now, at the moment of the beginning of their relationship. And as for Naruto, he managed to gently wrap his arms around two women, bringing them closer and letting them rest and fall asleep on his shoulders while he pondered and thought about what to do next. Although his goals were clear about the Akatsuki and he will stop them, Amaterasu has made it clear that he was first going to think about himself, now that he had his second chance in life, and that Akatsuki weren't going to be his end goal. He wasn't quite sure what he wanted for himself out of this life, but right now he felt more content and happiness than he ever did in Konoha, and at this moment, Naruto figured that this was where he belonged and where he shall stay. 3 years after the end of Mizu's civil war. Land of Water. Kamakura. Great Castle. The large council chambers were furnished with a certain style and luxury, yet lacked extravagance and overabundance of riches, instead possessing a well-maintained balance of practicality and effect. A large table with multiple chairs, with many taken, were stationed, with at the head of it sitting 3 persons, 2 women and 1 man, with the latter possessing the absolute authority and power in here and all of Land of Water. This man in a matter 3 years had gone from nobody to lord of Kamakura, to daimyo of a war-torn and ravaged country, and now a feudal lord of a restored and prospering country, with his name spoken with respect and admiration by his friends, and envy and whisper by his enemies. Naruto Uzumaki, dressed in the garments befitting his station, sat at the head of this council, flanked to his right by his wife, Raikou, and to his left was his second official wife. A goddess-like beauty with long dark blue hair with blue eyes, possessing a mature posture, along with aura that made others look and listen to her. She was Asagi Imagawa, the last member of the once reigning Imagawa family, who once reigned all of Land of Water, yet were practically all wiped out, and now consisted only of Hikari. While he listened to the reports made by his ministers about the state of affairs, Naruto could not help but drift a little into the past and memories, recalling how did he go from a lord of Kamakura to becoming a daimyo of Land of Water. Just as Mei and Raikou had predicted, there were absolutely no problems for Naruto to assume the position of lord and obtain noble status, but that was where the immediate good news had ended. While the people now saw the former rebels as heroes and Yagura's forces with their coalition was shattered, the Land of Water descended into even more bloodshed and chaos, as the pocket kingdoms of warlords shattered into counties and areas and warred with each other, driven by ambitious and greedy people. With daimyo effectively powerless and the sole force able to bring back the order being Mei and Raikou's army, they were effectively charged with doing so, as was Naruto by the order of the court and daimyo personally. After consolidating and regrouping, they went to work cleaning up the mess and returning order and control in the lawless and ravaged counties, provinces and towns, with the speed and efficiency that was unlike anything the people had seen before. In the matter of weeks entire provinces were reclaimed and order was restored, with quite a few of those being freed solely by Naruto, increasing his fame even further and earning him respect and authority from the others. The newlywed lord of Kamakura quickly showed the aptitude for not just warfare and jutsu, but also for command, strategy, politics and diplomacy, and with the tutoring from Raikou and his own learning, Naruto soon gained not just a prominent place in the forces, but became its third leader, alongside Mei and Raikou. And with every victory won, every town and city freed and every life saved, fame and glory of Naruto grew, as did the belief in his divine origin, which had spread like wildfire ever since his appearance, with even shinobi and samurai being not above believing that he was someone chosen by gods. Conveniently, neither Mei nor Raikou had spoken out against it, nor did Naruto, and they simply allowed this notion to persist, for it did not cause any trouble for them, instead bringing more certain validity and power to them. Eventually, after about 7 months of warfare, Land of Water was unified and freed from rebels, bandits, rogues and warlords, and for a time it seemed like peace would finally reign. However, those hopes were quickly crushed when the water daimyo died in strange circumstances, and due to him being childless and without any immediate male heirs, the capital of the Land of Water, Narumi, erupted into a civil strife and chaos. Actions and candidates for the throne began an all-out war for the throne, brothers and cousins killing each other, with the Imagawa effectively destroying each other. Naturally, noble lords and their forces were also getting involved, and it all promised to spill into another round of civil war, with only Naruto, Mei, Raikou and their immediate allies and retainers staying out of it all. Officially, Naruto stayed out of it all because he tended Kamakura and his own lands, as well as retainers and vassals that were granted to him by the court, but after it became clear that the new war was going to break out in the land, he called upon his own forces and quickly marched upon the capital. At first, it was assumed that he was going to pledge himself to one faction or another, but instead of doing any of that, he instead seized the capital with his own forces, declared an immediate ceasefire, and imprisoned all of the participating nobles, samurai, shinobi and candidates for the throne. Most of the seized nobles and surviving Imagawa members believed that such a thing would not go unpunished, yet as it turned out, the people of Narumi and Land of Water didn't even lift a finger, along with the rest of the samurai, shinobi and nobles. The simple fact was that the people were just too tired of war, chaos, wanted peace and stability, and right now, the one who was bringing it to them was Naruto Uzumaki, Lord of Kamakura. Even if he was a de facto usurper, the nobles and people that stayed out of it all saw him as someone fit to rule, given his now legendary status and divine origin that was now widely believed to be true. And yet, Naruto didn't act as a despot and tyrant, instead choosing to summon the most prominent members of nobility, religion and people, compassing a council and charging said council with deciding who should rule the Land of Water. In a near-unanimous vote, Naruto Uzumaki was chosen to ascend the throne of water and take the position and status as daimyo of water, and it was by the choice of the people, an unheard of thing, that Naruto was made into ruler of one of the 5 great nations. To legitimize his status and transition of power, Asagi Imagawa, daughter of the deceased daimyo who had fled to Kamakura for safety, wed him and assumed the position of the main wife, though at this point there was no such thing as main or secondary. Right after this, Naruto went on to finally end this bloody circus, and he did so extremely efficiently and ruthlessly, by beheading the instigators of this royal crisis, ending almost all of Imagawa family, as well as many noble families. After suppressing the initial rebels and families of the deceased, Naruto went on to reform the administration of the provinces, redistribute land, standardize taxation and much more, not to mention finally begin the restoration of the land of water. The next 2 years Naruto had spent on restoring land of water and then advancing its station by improving it in whatever way he could, and his hard and diligent work showed results already. Land of water was for the first time in nearly a century fully at peace, and people finally could live in peace and stability without the fear of war or bandits. Cities, villages, infrastructure, agriculture, internal and external trade, all of that and more improved by leaps and bounds, bringing wealth and prosperity to what was considered once the second weakest great land. Under Naruto's rule, Land of Water once again became a naval trading powerhouse, serving as the midway point between West and East, with its captains sailing the seas and selling valuables and wares that were produced in Land of Water. Hidden Mist Village and its shinobi also were restored and empowered, doing away with its bloody traditions and ways, instead focusing on moving forward, though Naruto's reforms had made the land safer than ever. Yet he did not forget about his shinobi and made sure they were in top condition, had both funding and contracts, and with his wealth and power, there were bound to appear those who would want to take advantage of it. Skirmishes between lands were nothing new, and shinobi of the great nations often clashed in small-scale fights or proxy conflicts, and in case of Land of Water, Iwagakure and Kumagakure were more than eager enough to test the waters for a new conflict. If at first soon after the end of wars they did find success, now they found only death, for Kurigakure shinobi and samurai of water were more than ready to repel and defeat them. Naruto had to commend Mei for her leadership and reforms, which had made the Kurigakure shinobi into a force to be reckoned with, and with the many shinobi clans returning or migrating to Land of Water, they were well on their way to becoming the #1 shinobi power, and that is without possessing a tailed beast. Once he was done shifting through his memories, Naruto's full attention turned back to the council and the reports as he raised his head and looked with his strong eyes at the current minister who was making the report. Over the years, he did do away with his mane of hair and instead opted for a more manageable and shorter style, with his hair mostly pulled back and reaching his neck, with a few short strands of it falling over his forehead. The change in hairstyle allowed him a complete clear sight, while his wives appreciated the fact that they could fully look at his strong and regal face. Raising his hand a little to signal that he has heard enough, Naruto spoke up. Good work on restoring the main Takedo Road, Yoshitsugu. I will be expecting your full report within 2 weeks. The said minister bowed his head in respect, while Naruto turned his head to the next one. Mitsunari, what's the status of our traders in the Land of Fire? You reported at the earlier session that they were facing animosity from the local traders and even nobles. Yes, Millard, as I have reported 2 weeks ago, our traders and merchants were being pushed away out of the markets or outright denied access to it. While initially those were but isolated cases, they have, unfortunately, evolved. Mitsunari began his report. 2 days ago, I have received verified information that the Fire Daimyo and his court had issued an edict that increased the taxation of our merchants all throughout the Land of Fire on the basis of their so-called unfair advantage over their local traders. Furthermore, the governors and city heads were given permission to set taxation rates and to officially deny our merchants into towns without needing a reason for it. And what is the reasoning that Fire Daimyo and his court used to justify such a drastic action? Asagi asked with cold controlled tone, speaking with the authority afforded to her by her station, power and ability. If they are aware of the fact that our merchants and traders can rely upon the protection and support of the Water Court, why does Fire Court so openly seeks to antagonize us? We do not have a concrete information on that, milady. However, ministers and several other merchants, as well as I, believe that they have taken such a stance due to our increased trade with lands of wind, snow and water, with the former and latter having once been their primary trade partners. Mitsunari responded. As your majesties are aware, soon after the return of 4th Hokage to Konoha, all of those lands opted to first limit their diplomatic ties with Land of Fire and after our appeals to them, have officially ended their treaties. Their current actions can be considered as a retaliation for our diplomatic and trading success, and by doing this they either hope to limit our influence or gain compensation for their losses. Minister Ishida, do you have possible solutions or responses to this situation? Raikou asked of him, with Mitsunari nodding. Ministers Atani, Yukita and I have compiled several potential responses for this situation. If His Majesty wishes, we'll present them to him at the earliest opportunity. Mitsunari responded, with Naruto thinking about it and answering. I will hear you out about it tomorrow before noon, Mitsunari. Yoshitsugu and Hidia, you two will present your options to me alongside Mitsunari and his proposal. Naruto told them, before turning to Mei. Lady Mizukage, what is the status of the shinobi forces and what can you report about the activities of other hidden villages and their forces? Since the start of the spring, there were no incursions into our lands by the forces of other hidden villages, and our informants state that currently Kumagakure and Iwagakure are more focused on dealing with internal matters rather than trying to probe our defenses. Mei reported in the official tone. In Iwagakure, Inoki is trying to maintain control over his more bellicose shinobi, who wish to take revenge on Konoha for what had happened in the Third Great War, while in Kumagakure, 4th Raikage is ramping up his military preparations, though it is unclear whether he is planning to launch an attack or is just doing his usual blistering. Nothing out of the ordinary. Naruto commented. Any news about Konohagakure and Tsunade? Our relations with Tsunade are stable and growing stronger by the day. We have approved an exchange program to learn from one another's tactics and strategies, and our defensive pact has been fully approved and ratified. Current Kazuki Ijigara is very open towards improving our relations further and has suggested that our villages send respective ambassadors on a permanent basis. Mei stated to Naruto. As for Konohagakure, our sources indicate that for now their primary focus remains the restoration of their power after the attack by Suna and Orochimaru 3 years ago. While 4th Hokage is back in power, it would appear that their local council, which has gained far more authority during his absence, limits his power and they are not so openly supportive of him. While their twin Jinchuriki do possess the 9 tails, we have reliable information on the fact that they are still unable to fully control its power. Furthermore, with Orochimaru still at large and his Itagakure still active, they still have to deal with it, though it would appear that Minato Namikaze is less interested in Orochimaru. In fact, their primary focus currently remains the same as it was before the Akatsuki. The group of S-rank rogue shinobi mercenaries is of greater import to him than a man who had nearly destroyed his village and got away alive and with mostly intact forces. Gincho asked, with Mei nodding to her. Lady Mizukage, can you explain why Hokage take such active interest in them? Aside from the fact that Orochimaru is their former member and that Itachi Uchiha is still among their numbers, all I can speculate is that the reason for such an interest is that Akatsuki seemed to take particular interest in the tailed beasts and their hosts. Mei stated. Of course, Kurigakure and Land of Water do not have any of those present in our possession. However, such an interest in tailed beasts is concerning at the very least, and given their members, they certainly possess the capacity to capture one or several of them. This is the possible reason why Minato Namikaze is so preoccupied with them. Aside from that, I have nothing more to say. Naruto nodded to her. If nobody has anything more to report or suggest, then this council session is adjourned. You may return to your duties. And with this said, the ministers rose up and bowed to Naruto and left the chambers, while he and his women stepped out of the chambers and onto the balcony, overlooking the current capital of the Land of Water. Nothing out of the ordinary, I can't help but like it. Naruto said with a small smile as he and his wives stood at the balcony, Raikou and Mei softly wrapping their hands around each of his own. There is nothing strange about, especially after how tumultuous things were 2 years ago. Raikou said softly as she laid her head on his shoulder. Looking at Kamakura now, it's hard to think that just 3 years ago it was one of the smaller cities, but now is the beating heart of our land, as prosperous and thriving as the capital. And it's all thanks to you, Naruto. You give me too much credit. Without people like Mitsunari, Yoshitsugu, Hidia and others who earnestly and wholeheartedly work for it, and without the 3 of you, I wouldn't have been able to accomplish it all. Naruto responded with a small smile. Ever the humble person. While it is nice for the public, you do not have to pretend with us. After all, we 3 here know all your secrets, especially the naughty kind. Mei said with a flirtatious tone. Do take pride in yourself and your work, Naruto, if not for your own sake, then for ours. After all, we do love it when you take control of the situation, hard and mercilessly. She said with a husky tone, with Asagi huffing at this. You always have to so crass and open about such things, Mei. Asagi looked at her with a disapproving eye. The last thing people need to know is what is going on in their daimyo's bedroom. Oh, I think they know quite well what is going on in there, especially when it is your turn to be conquered, my dear. Mei said with a wink, while Asagi blushed up a storm. Stop it. Raikou, how can you stand her being so even after all this time? Asagi could not fully handle Mei and her near-open discussions of intimacy. I grew used to it, and besides, I do not mind people talking about me and our husband. Raikou responded. If anything, I do find it somewhat amusing, hearing maids or these young ladies whispering about how our husband can take us all in one night and coming up with the various ways we make love. Yes, they are quite amusing, though it might be best to not tell them all the details. We wouldn't want to crush their meager fantasies with the overwhelming reality. May suggested. Those poor girls wouldn't be able to handle knowing the true potency of our Lord. May giggled suggestively, with Naruto shaking his head at that. I think that is enough of such talk. We don't want Asagi to blush up even more than she already is. Naruto told them, with the other agreeing, before he remembered something. It's almost time. You have an appointment with a minister. You didn't tell us. Raikou said with a bit of a surprised look, with Naruto shaking his head. No, it's not one of the ministers. Rei had asked to have lunch with me at the Uzumaki mansion, said she wished to discuss some matters of the clan. Naruto told them. More like she is trying to make you spend more time with her, using any opportunity she can get. Asagi commented in a calm and collected manner, without any hostility. I have to give her credit for persistence and diligence in her approach. It is not like that, Asagi. At least, not completely. Naruto sighed. Sure, Rei can be suggestive and flirtatious, quite like May, but when she wishes to discuss serious matters, she is fully committed to doing that. Yet you cannot deny the fact that she is more than willing to become your concubine, or rather, your clan wife, as she called it. Raikou reminded him. After all, you are the son of Amaterasu and the man responsible for giving the Uzumaki clan a new home and a chance to rebuild here in Kamakura. Given the history of the Uzumaki and all you've done for them and her, it's obvious she is more than just eager to become yours alone. And if anything, we wouldn't mind a bit of an expansion in our ranks. The more the merrier, as they say. May chuckled at that, with Naruto sighing at that. And what if I were to say that I am content with just the three of you? Naruto asked of them. Then we would call you selfish and heartless. May jokingly answered. You are daimyo of Land of Water and a demigod in all but name, Naruto. Compared to you, most daimyo have from 20 to 50 concubines and wives, with some exceeding that, and they are a joke when compared to you. And while you only take those you care and love, we all know your heart can fit more than just the three of us, or rather your virility and stamina are far more than just three of us can handle. And yet I do not hear you complain about either of those. Naruto noted. But the way you take us, we can't exactly complain, figuratively and literally afterwards. Raikou chuckled a little, before she kissed his cheek, leaning closer to his ear. Let's not pretend that you do not find her attractive in looks and personality, only a liar. If you fear our response, then don't, for we've already told her that we approve of her and gave her all the encouragement we could. Plotting schemes behind my back, are we? Naruto jokingly asked of them. It would seem you need some disciplining, for good ladies do not do such things behind their husband's back. Yes, it would seem we do need some disciplining, and we have been very bad ladies as of late. May played along. Will our Lord teach us proper etiquette and morals tonight? Raikou asked quite daringly, while Asagi could not bring herself to play along. But why you really have to say it like that? It's embarrassing enough as it is, T2 asked. T2 Asagi stammered, with Naruto turning to her and putting his hand on her cheek, calming her. It is part of the fun, but if it makes you uncomfortable, we can always stop, Asagi. Naruto assured her, with her feeling a little more confident, deciding to respond. Then no p perhaps our Lord C could make it homey earlier tonight, so that we could attend him more, Asagi said with a red face in an act that was solely reserved for when she is with Naruto and is open to intimacy, with Naruto smiling and leaning to her ear. I will, Asagi, now that you are wishing for it. Naruto assured her, before giving her a kiss on the lips, which she shyly answered to. And in what will my lady shall attend me? He asked of her quite daringly, with Asagi knowing what to answer. Though only in what her husband desires, Asagi responded, with all of them knowing what it meant. At this point, the answer didn't matter to them, for it was always the same as it used to be, and all three ladies knew it, for they knew that while Naruto appreciated romance and intimacy, when he gave them such a question, it meant that the incoming night shall be one of passion and lust. And that meant that there would be no such need for fancy clothes or intricate lingerie to entice their lord, for nothing enraptured him more than the natural beauty of his wives. After bidding his wives goodbye for the time and giving each of them a kiss, Naruto departed with his guards the castle, eagerly awaiting the night that is to come and already planning ahead his talk with Rei. And all the while he enjoyed his current life and wishing that it could stay the same and never change, yet in the back of his mind he knew that it was not to be. Konoha. Hokage's office. Minato Namikaze, the reinstated 4th Hokage in the Yellow Flash of the Leaf Village, was sitting in his office and contemplating the situation he and his village were currently found themselves in right now. While few could argue with the fact that Konoha was currently at its strongest it had ever been, and with the peace reigning people prospered, Minato and those who paid attention to the things and what was really happening knew that there were quite a few issues brewing up within and outside of Konoha. And this was not something that Minato had deal with when he returned with his family back to Konoha at an earlier date than he and Kushina had planned, something that was brought about by Naruto's death. While a normal parent would still lament the fact that his son had died and that he had to face such great mistreatment and pain from near the very day he was born, he was not a normal parent, especially towards Naruto. Minato lamented not his death, but the fact that it came so early and had ruined the plans he, his teacher, third Hokage and Kushina, had made years in advance. Both he and Kushina had long since come to terms with the fact that this was necessary sacrifice, made for the good of the people, and there was no point in thinking what would be if they had done differently. Doubt was not something that they needed to deal, so they accepted the fact that Naruto was a sacrifice that was needed to be done, and that was it. They were shinobi, and it was expected, for the good of the leaf and its people, to make whatever sacrifice was necessary, and this was no different in his mind. Naruto was made into a sacrifice for the sake of Leaf, his family and the whole world, and as Jiraiya argued, there was no better honor than to die to help bring world peace, which Menma and Natsu were meant to establish. It was always an established fact that Naruto would not live for too long, perhaps perish and die before or shortly after turning 20 or so, but to die at 13, and when his siblings were not yet able to gain control of Kyuubi, this complicated matters quite seriously, as the village lost its Jinchuriki, and soon after the elation of the death of supposed Demon Fox vanished. The realization of their weakness and insecurity settled in. Fortunately, before things could deteriorate to panic, Minato and his family made their return, and with the recommendation and command of Fire Daimyo, he assumed the control and command of Konoha and its shinobi. While the populace generally greeted the return of their greatest shinobi with happiness and elation, behind the closed doors, the council had made it clear that they were not very pleased with the fact that they were lied to about this whole affair. The civilian and shinobi portions of the council have already gotten used to the fact that they held great amount of power and even were able to bend Hokage to their will at time, and finding out that there was such a scheme in place was not pleasing for them. Not to mention the elders who have long since grown comfortable seeing themselves as equals to the Hokage, and they were not about to give Minato any more power than they thought he deserved, for he was a youngster who needed to learn how to respect his seniors. In short, Minato returned to a not fully prepared village that he could steer in whatever direction, but to a viper's nest with power plays, factions, schemes and plots, with him being forced to somehow navigate it all, just to manage to get his will done. What also complicated matters was the fact that Orochimaru was still at large, and with Uchiha Sasuke as his apparent apprentice, and a whole hidden village under his command, and he had managed to shatter the myth of Konoha's complete superiority and invincibility. While the damage done during the invasion was long since repaired, it still caused long-term ramifications down the line that Minato and Konoha were dealing with. Their old enemies, Iwa and Kumo, were again rearming themselves and quite clearly itching for a rematch, while Suna had pulled away from their alliance about a year back, based on unreliability of Konoha in matters of security and assistance. To add more insult to that, mere days later it became known to Konoha that Suna was now in the process of improving relations with Kurigakure and Land of Water through their daimyo. And this was where Minato's current concern and thoughts lied with the Land of Water and its relatively new daimyo, a man who calls himself Naruto Uzumaki and who is hailed by the people of water as a savior, demigod and more. In all honesty, Minato and other high-ranking members of Konoha did not know what to think of this man, for their information was limited and not complete, for Kurigakure and its shinobi were extremely good at dealing with their informants. Could he be just someone sharing the name of his son, or was he using it for some kind of scheme? What was known and understood by Minato was the fact that this man had risen in an extraordinary notion, having unified and strengthened a long fractured and ravaged land, turning it into a powerhouse that everyone was forced to acknowledge. Their economic and trading influence were felt even here, while its shinobi and regular forces were on a whole new level, and this was causing quite a concern to the Fire Daimyo and his court, hence why they issued Minato a special order. One that was bound by duty to complete, hence why he ordered for specifically selected shinobi to arrive in here so that they were to be given a mission. Soon enough, the door opened and through it stepped his wife, Kushina Uzumaki, Jiraiya, Kakashi Haddock, Kurina Yuhi, Asuma Sarutobi and his former team, consisting of Shikamaru Nara, Ino Yamanaka and Choji Akimichi. Once they were inside and the doors closed, Minato began to talk. Thank you all for arriving on such a short notice. I am sure I do not have to tell you that the mission you are about to assigned on is of utmost importance and that you are not to speak of it to anyone. Once you are assigned, you will leave at the soonest opportunity and will not return until it is completed. Minato spoke up to them in an official Hokage tone. This is a deep undercover recon mission, which may last from several weeks to half a year, if needed, and will carry with itself all of the dangers of such a mission. If any of you wish to quit, do so now and nobody will hold it against you. Kid, I'm sure you know that those who are here are fully aware of all the dangers and risks and that we'll still take up this mission. Jiraiya responded with his usual tone. Just give us the details and watch us do our best. My former team and I are ready for anything, Lord Hokage. Asuma stated, with Kurenai and his former team nodding to it. I'm personally itching for a mission. It's been ages since I've been to the field, so come on, Minato, just tell us what you want us to do. Kushina eagerly answered. Well, I've assumed that this isn't going to be a walk in the park, but whatever you have for us, we'll do it, sensei. Kakashi responded, with Minato satisfied with their responses, opened up his drawer and pulled out their scrolls for them, before giving it to them. These are your specific orders, that you are complete while on that mission. Now as for the mission itself, it comes directly from the Fire Court and Lord Daimyo himself. Their goals are to infiltrate the Land of Water and to make a full assessment of their military, political, economic and shinobi situation, and along with that, you are to investigate and learn everything you can about its current political leadership, in particular about their water daimyo. Minato stated to them, with the people he summoned immediately growing serious, while Kushina looked at him with surprise. Lord Hokage, you mean our orders are to investigate whether or not that water daimyo really is Naruto or not? Shikamaru immediately asked, with Kushina stiffening at the mention of her discarded son. I was under the impression that he died in battle with Sasuke 3 years ago, and his body was destroyed after it was retrieved. Yes, it was, and while the general consensus in the council and me is that this man is either simply sharing his name or is using it for some reason, we simply do not know anything concrete aside from his recent activities in the last 3 years, and even then we only have second-hand reports. Minato stated. It is your job to establish who he is and what his intentions and plans are. From what we know for certain is that he is 22 to 26 years old and clearly has had extensive shinobi training, possibly having been one, and is considered to be extremely skilled and powerful in ninjutsu, jinjutsu, bukijutsu and taijutsu. Jiraiya can fill you all on what we know about him right now. This Naruto appeared out of nowhere and if reports are to be believed, single-handedly ended the battle at Kamakura by killing Yagura by, quote, manifesting a divine power from the gods and slaying Yagura in his tailed beast mode. Sounds far-fetched, I know, but most of the reports we have all have such things in them told about him, with many going as far as to call him son of Amaterasu herself, the goddess of sun, life and light, as well as royal power. Jiraiya stated. She is also considered to be the progenitor of the Uzumaki clan and our main patron goddess. Kushina added. To so boldly claim to be her son, this man is either seeking death or is plain stupid, for no one would dare to do so. I doubt he is even a real Uzumaki, just some no-name who thought to usurp my family's name. Well, regardless whether he is in Uzumaki or not, people prefer to believe he is at least descendant from Amaterasu, and with the feats he was displaying, it only served to reinforce his supposed divinity. After the battle, he married a prominent feudal lady by the name of Raikou Minamoto and became lord of Kamakura, and after their forces and current Mizukage de facto reunified Land of Water, he returned back for a few months to Kamakura. However, when the water daimyo was poisoned and the court and the capital erupted into bloodshed and chaos, Naruto went there with his army after having taken Asagi Imagawa, the daughter of late daimyo, as his new wife. Jiraiya continued. Instead of pledging to any of the factions, he instead seized the capital and the castle, imprisoning the feuding forces, and after a supposedly democratic council, he was elected new daimyo of water, and right after that, he executed everyone who had participated in the bloodshed. In one fell swoop, he had effectively eliminated anyone who could have opposed him and his reign. From what I heard, it sounds like this man had actually orchestrated the entire affair and used it to seize power and become daimyo himself, while using the Imagawa princess to legitimize his reign. Kakashi added. Whatever the case, he had gone from a simple lord to daimyo in a matter of a year, and that is not something that most men can accomplish. Wait, you said that he was already married to that Raikou woman, right? How could he marry an Imagawa princess if he already had a wife? Ino asked, oblivious to that fact, with Shikamaru sighing from her foolishness. What a drag, Ino, didn't your mother and father tell you about such thing as polygamy and how it's still practiced? Shikamaru asked of her, with Ino shaking her head. Man, what a drag basically, a man of noble origin and status, from a low-ranking samurai to a daimyo, has the right to take up more than one wife, with most of the women taken becoming his concubines. Shinobi also have that option, but generally avoid doing it unless it is to preserve the clan's special abilities, traditions and clan itself. So this Naruto might have more than just those 2 wives, in fact, he might have a harem to up to 20 or 30 women in it, and it would be totally normal. You. What a pig. Ino said with disgust. I can see how this person would be able to destroy the entire daimyo family, while also taking the last of its members to bed. Man, he must be the absolute worst. Maybe, yet he also the man who had unified the country and made it into a force to be reckoned with again. Kurenai added. According to what I heard, he made the land of water into a prosperous and wealthy country, as well as brought it peace and unheard before stability. And while he is ruthless with his enemies and merciless towards those who dare oppose him, one can't argue with the results. What's that, Kurenai? Am I hearing a hint of admiration in your tone? Asuma asked of her in a bit of a teasing fashion, with Kurenai simply rolling her eyes at that one. All I am saying is that this Naruto Uzumaki, or whatever his actual real name, is certainly not someone to underestimate. Kurenai stated, before turning to Minato. What exactly do you wish for us to learn about him, Lord Hokage? Within those scrolls are your specific orders, which will give you individual tasks to accomplish, so you can learn all about it there. Your first real challenge will be getting to Land of Water and Kamakura, the current capital, undetected, and unfortunately, it would appear that we cannot use the usual shinobi routes and ways. Minato stated to them. Gurigakur shinobi have so far been able to intercept and either eliminate or detain every incursion into the Land of Water, and our Anbu have had no luck trying to get anywhere close. Hence why you will be traveling in deep undercover, with Jiraiya providing you the means to accomplish that. You have until dawn to prepare for this mission, so everyone, save for Jiraiya and Kushina, are dismissed. The shinobi bowed to him and left, leaving him alone with his teacher and wife. Okay, kid, what is it that you want to talk to us about? Jiraiya asked of him, knowing that Minato would not have held them back if it was not important. About 2 days ago, I have received a report from Kamakura from one of our undercover agents, working for a trader in Land of Wood. According to his report, there are members of an actual clan Uzumaki present and living in Kamakura in large numbers. In fact, he has stated that they are residing there on a permanent basis and that their current leader, named Rei Uzumaki, is very close to the daimyo and that he is considered in all but name their head. Minato revealed to them what he had heard with Kushina looking at him with shock. Minato, are you sure that this information can be trusted? How many Uzumaki are there in Kamakura? Kushina immediately asked of him. I do not know the exact number, but he stressed that it was enough to count for a standard shinobi clan, like with Nara or Hyuga. I'm aware that the Uzumaki were once one of the largest in terms of numbers clans in all of lands, which was part of the reason they were able to control an entire country on their own, not to mention having about 5 small clans as their vassals. Minato said. Their specific mission, Kushina, will be to come into a contact with them quietly and use your connection to them to gain information about this Naruto and if possible, convince them to come to the Hidden Leaf village. Given the history between our people, I am hopeful it can be accomplished without much issue. Of course it will be accomplished, Minato. I am a member of the main branch of Uzumaki clan and I don't know who this Rei is, so she is bound to be just another one of the side branch members who got lucky. Kushina assured him. Konoha and Uzugakure have a long and strong history together, so of course the people will come here when they learn that we are ready to accept them. I'm glad to hear about it. Minato smiled to her, while he turned to Jiraiya. Your job, sensei, will be to set up a proper information network in the Land of Water, so we may actually start to gain reliable and up-to-date information. Well, that won't be too hard to do, but I do have to ask about something, kid. Jiraiya said. In case this daimyo actually turns out to be who we don't think he is, what are we to do? You mean, if he is our Naruto, somehow reborn and returned older and fully grown up? Minato asked of him with skepticism. I thought you didn't believe in such things, sensei. Perhaps before, but after consulting with the toads about this whole situation, let's just say that when they heard about this man, they told me to be very careful with him and that while Naruto Uzumaki I knew is dead, this one carries in him the will, might and potential that was once to belong to the dead one. I honestly do not know what to make of it all, but Jiraiya sighed. Just in case, what if it is him, Minato, what are your orders? If it really is our Naruto, do you think there is any chance we could convince him to return back to Konoha? Kushina asked, although she already knew the answer. And give up being a daimyo, one of the most powerful nations, uncountable riches and power just to be a lowly genin. Maybe with the previous Naruto it would work since all he wanted was to be a Hokage, but if this one is even half as good as the stories make him out to be, we might be dealing with someone who could give even Shikaku Nara a run for his money in plots and strategies. Jiraiya told her, with Kushina sighing. Still, we might be able to benefit in some form or manner from him, if really is our Naruto. If he really the same and one person, then use it to our advantage, if not to gain his trust and friendship, then to undermine his position and power. Minato stated to them. I quite doubt that the nobles and people of Land of Water will follow some failed genin from Konoha once they learned of his true origin. A month later. Kamakura. The travel to Kamakura took much longer than normally would have if Konoha's shinobi had taken a direct route, but since it was obvious that Kurigakure and their new allies, Suna, were watching such approaches, they had to change the strategy. Instead of a direct incursion straight away, they opted to first travel to one of Land of Water's trading partners, Land of Wood, and there find a wood trader who would be looking for some guards to hire. Land of Wood, according to Jiraiya, was one of the main suppliers of expensive lumber, and their traders were a regular sight in Kamakura and other ports, and Jiraiya was certain that he would be able to find them one such trader. Well, for a few days they had no luck after arriving to the port town. They did catch a break when Jiraiya was able to locate one merchant who was going to travel to Land of Water and after some convincing, managed to get them hired. The problem however was that first he would make several stops at other countries and ports, so Shinobi were forced to patiently wait until they arrived to Kamakura almost a month after setting out. The journey here was quite uneventful, boring and downright demoralizing at times, but when they saw the bustling great city that was Kamakura, it had actually served to lift up their spirits. The current new capital city of Land of Water looked like it was from another world when compared to the other capital cities, with even Land of Fire City looking rather underwhelming when compared to it. The bustling full port that was packed with ships and traders in the harbor, beyond which began the expansive city, with buildings towering over the fully paved streets, with electricity and lanterns everywhere. The city streets were packed to the brim with citizens, travelers, traders and more, and to Konoha's Shinobi, it seemed like all of the water country could actually fit in here. Once they were docked and having bid their goodbye to their way in, Konoha's Shinobi, disguised as simple-looking Ronins, made their way through the streets, marveling at it and the people in here. Man, would you look at the size of this place. This city makes Konoha look like some backwater town or something like that. Chaoji voiced his surprise as he looked around. And there are so many people, it almost makes me dizzy. Oh look. There are so many restaurants and cafes. Maybe we should make a stop at one of them and get a bait to it. You had your breakfast just an hour ago, Chaoji. I'm pretty certain that you and your stomach can survive for a few hours without local food. Asuma told him as he too observed the place. But you are right, there are a lot of people in here, more than I ever saw in Fire Capital, that's for certain, and we aren't even at the city center yet. If I were to guess, this is a district allocated to merchants and travelers from the overseas, where they can find lodgings for their stay. Might a good place to start gathering information, what do you think? I don't know about you, but I really want to see what their market and shops are like. Look at what the girls here are dressed, they all look like they are nobles in these dresses and kimonos, and this is the stuff I would only wear on special occasions, and they wear it just for an out and about walk. Ino commented. Oh, look. There is the marketplace. After that, Ino and Chaoji went on ahead, leaving their senior comrades behind, with Asuma letting out a sigh. They are supposed to be Chuninins, yet she still acts like a genin, Asuma said aloud, but making sure nobody from around her didn't hear him. Well, it would appear we are in luck. With such a crowd here, it would be easier for us to get by undetected and start getting the information. Asuma concluded as they reached the marketplace and saw just how massive it was, with many shops and traders selling everything, from jewelry to clothes and more. Well, this certain puts Konoha's market to shame. Kurenai commented as she surveyed the busy place before turning to Jiraiya. Do you have reliable sources of information here, Jiraiya? Afraid not, but I'm sure I'll be able to find a way to piece things together, so to speak. Jiraiya said as he looked around before picking one of the local traders and moving to him. Hey there, how's the trade going? Hello, yeah, trade's going well. You are in luck, I still have some fine fabrics if you are interested for a reasonable price. Better buy them now, cause before the end of the festival tomorrow, I'll all out of it. Merchant told Jiraiya, with him deciding to decline. I think I'll pass for now. You say there is going to be a festival tomorrow? Jiraiya asked, with the merchants nodding to him. What's the occasion for a celebration? Sakura blooming. No, we had that one already. This is a festival in honor of the end of bloodshed and all the wars 2 years ago. Merchant informed Jiraiya. Ever since our new daimyo took power, he's brought us peace and prosperity, not to mention unheard security and stability. Just some 5 years ago I couldn't go to another city on this island without getting me a whole squad of mercenaries, but now I can go all around the country without any fear that I would be robbed. Sounds like your new daimyo is a pretty serious person. He must not really like it when people don't do what he says or say things that aren't nice about him. Jiraiya noted seemingly offhand, with merchants scoffing at that. I'd like to see someone stupid or rather ignorant enough to criticize Lord Naruto, especially after all he has done for the people. In just 2 years he has fixed practically everything that the Imagawa and their advisors have destroyed or made worse, and that's not to mention finally dealing with all those warlords and bandits. Merchant stated with fervor. All that the previous daimyo cared about were themselves, while Lord Uzumaki is actually living up to his status and does his duties. Yeah, I heard all that, and yet I also heard that he had caused the downfall of the Imagawa to begin with, not to mention eradicated all but 1 or 2 of them. Jiraiya reminded. That's what they say in other great countries, I've heard all that plenty of times. I do not know myself, and to be quite honest, I am actually glad that the Imagawa are gone, save for Lady Asagi, Amaterasu bless her. If anything, Lord Uzumaki has done us a great favor disposing of those bastards for good. Merchant stated with conviction. You definitely never were in the previous capital during another one of the turmoil, when a daimyo died or something like that. Streets ran red with blood from all the fighting, and nobody was spared, whether a participant or just some local unlucky soul who happened to be there at a wrong time. Now with Lord Uzumaki in charge, we don't have to worry about some overly ambitious fool starting trouble again. Even if it means possibly getting killed, if it means peace is preserved. Jiraiya asked, with the merchant looking at him with a not-so-friendly eye. I don't know why you are asking all of this, nor do I think I ever heard your name. In fact, you've got a rather funny accent, one that I think I've heard before, but I can't figure out where. Merchant narrowed his eyes at Jiraiya, who understood that he has overstayed his welcome. Well, sorry for being a bother, I'll just watch where you are going. Jiraiya said with indignation when he nearly bumped into a tall and strong-looking young man with quite a number of scars on his face, which didn't seem to detract from his natural handsomeness. Sorry, I didn't mean to. The man tried to apologize, but didn't manage to do so when he saw Jiraiya already leave with his group, while the man looked at them with focused eye, finding them and the man strange, before turning back to the merchant. Good day Matsuoto. Looks like I've scared off a customer of yours. The man jokingly said, with the merchant waving it off. Oh, don't worry yourself about it, Lord Namasa. That man wasn't buying anything, yet talking and asking all kinds of strange things about our daimyo and his rule. Merchant said with irritation. Honestly, he and his friends over there all look like trouble, so maybe it's best that I didn't sell them anything. Anyway, enough about them. Are you here for your order? Yes, and plus pack me that black one with yellow motif in there, same amount as of roll as I ordered before. Namasa said, with the merchant immediately preparing the order. So, what exactly did that weirdo talk about our daimyo? Oh, you know, the same old things that all of them high-class foreigners like to say about him. How he destroyed the Imagawa, took power and everything else. As if any of them actually know anything about how things were here before Lord Uzumaki ascended the throne. Merchant said. Although, there was something strange about the way he was speaking, his accent. Oh, now I remember. He's got the accent of a man from a fire country. The man spoke with surprise as he remembered, with Namasa raising his eyebrow at that. From fire country? Are you sure about that? Namasa asked of him. Yes, now I'm certain about it. I've actually made business with traders in Land of Waves when they were still trading back a few years ago, so yeah, I know my accents when I hear them. Merchant said as he finished the order, while Namasa turned to look at the group of the supposed Ronin, focusing his attention on the woman with the long red hair. Once he caught the side of her face, realization sat in his face and he understood finally why he had such a strange feeling about these people. The moment he paid for the order, he sent his shadow clone with the materials back home, while he had a group of infiltrators to keep an eye out for. Several hours later. Park of Red Leaves. Well, that has been a waste of time, Shikamaru said tiredly as he sat on the bench under one of the trees with red leaves. All we did find out is that the people here love their daimyo and that he has ordered a great big temple built and is currently making an inspection of it as we speak. Man, what a drag this has been, and we'll have to do it for the next 5 months or so. Why did I agree to it? Because you wanted to get away from your mom who has been nagging you about getting your life together. Ino joked, with Shikamaru groaning at that. I don't know about you, but I had a blast of a time. Well, at least one of us enjoyed themselves. Kakashi commented before looking at Chaoji chowing down on some food. Well, 2 of us enjoying themselves. We didn't really learn all that much, but this is something. In fact, we have a chance to get a good look at this Naruto Uzumaki. I say we sneak to that new temple he is inspecting and getting good look at him. Jiraiya said, with Kushina agreeing with him. It would be good for us to know at least how he looks. If you are wondering how he looks, you should have waited for tomorrow. Suddenly a new voice startled all of resting Konoha shinobi, forcing them to rise up and ready themselves. Lord Uzumaki doesn't really hide himself from the people and was going to make a speech and open the festivities, but I'm afraid you won't be able to witness it, Konoha shinobi. And from the trees into the open stepped the man who had bumped into Jiraiya earlier. Konoha shinobi. Friend, I think you got the wrong idea, how can we be shinobi? We are just your regular run-of-the-mill Ronins looking forward to your festival and have some fun after our work, and Jiraiya decided to try to play the legend they agreed upon, but Namasa was not convinced. Did this lie actually work on anyone? Or do you really think people are so stupid that they won't recognize the fire country accent when they hear it, or won't recognize one of the 3 Sanins just because he looks like a vagabond? Namasa asked as he eyed them all up. Kakashi of the Sharingan, Asuma Sarutobi, Kurana Yuhi, and to top it all off, Jiraiya of the Toads and Kushina Namikaze. Quite a career Hokage decided to send here. You aren't a simple civilian, are you? And while my husband may be Namikaze, I am Uzumaki, Kushina Uzumaki of the main Uzumaki branch and direct descendant of Amaterasu herself. Kushina stated with pride, while Namasa nearly scoffed at her. Who are you and what do you want? You know, I would have been surprised if you had actually recognized me, Kushina. But then again, you do tend to forget both friends and family, who are no longer all that important to you. Namasa responded, before answering. Does the name Ai Namasa ring a bell to you? Namasa. Wait Namasa, is that really you? Kushina asked of him with shock, with others looking at her. You know him, Kushina? Jiraiya asked of her. Yeah, now that I look at him it is you, Namasa. Kushina nodded to them. He and I were childhood friends back when I was still in Yuzu, his mother was my first Taijutsu instructor, and we trained together. I had thought that all of Ai clan perished alongside others when the Yuzu fell. Great many of our numbers died that day, with the intention of saving as many as we could, and my mother was among the casualties. Casualties that could have been avoided had Konoha held true to its word and aided us in defending our land and people. Namasa said with restrained anger. But no, instead you and your new home decided to sit back and let them destroy us, and even when survivors pleaded to be let in, your third Hokage and council decided to leave us to die. Well, we've survived. Namasa, I can understand that you are angry at Konoha for what had happened, but right now, I need you to put aside your anger, and Kushina tried to reason with him, but Namasa was not going to listen to her. And what? Tell you everything you and your friends here want to know, like about Naruto Uzumaki and what kind of a man is he. I've been shadowing you for quite a while, and I know what you are up against, so there's nothing you can say to convince me. Namasa stated to her. I am going to give you one chance to surrender to me right now, and you will be treated with respect and all the rights allocated to guests of daimyo. Persist, and I'll take you by force. Namasa told them with full seriousness. You honestly think that you actually stand a chance against all of us all by yourself? Kakashi asked of him. You face off against the best Konoha has to offer, all by your lonesome. And who said about me being alone here? Namasa asked of him, and at that moment a squad of 7 red armor-clad warriors, armed with swords and spears, appeared from the trees and surrounded them, with Namasa discarding his civilian garments, revealing a similar suit of light red armor, with a spear appearing in his hand. I'm sure you remember what made the Ai clan so famous, Kushina. Why don't you share with your friends who we are? Clan Ai was one of the smaller clans in Yuzu, but was the most militant and battle-hardened, with their best known collectively as Red Demons, for the armor they wore and their ferocity and skill in combat. Kushina said aloud, as she unsealed a sword for herself. Namasa, you do not have to do this. No, but I want to. Namasa responded, as he readied his spear. Now then, Konoha Shinobi, brace yourselves. Half a mile away. Great Amaterasu Temple. As you can see, the construction and all the polishes of the temple are complete, and now all that remains is the consecration and official opening, which you shall oversee tomorrow. Rei Uzumaki, the current official head of the Uzumaki clan, a young and stunningly beautiful woman with long flowing red hair and violet eyes, spoke to Naruto as he finished the inspection of the temple. And from then on, Amaterasu shall watch over Kamakura and protect it and its people, as well as bless your rule over this land, though I imagine you need not her blessing. No, she had blessed me to do whatever I wished with my life, but you are correct, Rei, the temple is quite an architectural marvel. Naruto commented. Spacious and large enough to hold hundreds of people at the same time, yet also decorated with luxury and grace, but without exuberance, just like she would have wanted. And it was complete in such a short amount of time. You have outdone yourself, Rei. You honor me, Millard, with your words, though had you decided to personally lead the project, you would have accomplished it all in a single night, if not sooner. Rei suggested with a small smile, as they observed the temple. I must confess that at first I did not think you would take my suggestion so close to heart and allow this temple to be built. Well, you are in Uzumaki, you are also the daimyo of Land of Water, and I thought that you would use the resources and money for more prominent projects than this one. I may be daimyo now, but I am also in Uzumaki, and if I have committed myself to seeing the clan that I call my own restored and revived, I intend to do it fully. And what better way to start it than to restore its culture and traditions, not to mention bring you closer to the people here through creation of something that all can share. Naruto asked of her. Amaterasu is a goddess for all, more so than the sage of 6 paths, and she has become a symbol that creates something that unites people from all around the world. She would not object to usage of her image if it means bringing people together, and while there are many projects that also require resources and time, one can't forget about the culture and what makes a people unique. Rei listened to him and nodded with a small smile. Spoken like a true enlightened son of Amaterasu, and while we have this opportunity, I wish to ask if you had given any thought to my proposal. Ray asked of him directly, with Naruto turning to face her. You certainly know when to pick your time to ask such things, Ray. Naruto noted. And here I was trying to impress you with all the philosophical discussions Uzumaki Daimyo jokingly stated, with Ray chuckling to it. A good effort, though at this point a bit unnecessary, for I am thoroughly impressed by you, and have been so for quite a long time now, hence why my boldness when asking you if you have given thought to my wish to join you as more than just your close friend and member of Uzumaki clan. Ray said openly to Naruto. The clan and its members are fully loyal to you and are eternally in your debt for you had done for and to us, Naruto, but to leave you without a justified reward would be at the very least ungrateful of us. And what better reward there is for a savior of an entire nation than its princess? A simple thank you would have sufficed. Naruto said dryly, with Ray shaking her head. Maybe for you, but not to me. Ray said, as she drew his gaze. We both know that I shan't relent in my desires and attempts, Naruto, and I know that I am attractive to your eye and soul. Why waste time with this indecisiveness instead of allowing us to finally embrace each other as lovers should? Maybe because I was actually trying to time it perfectly with the festival to give a certain special feel, so to speak. Naruto suggested, with Ray chuckling to him before moving closer and nearly touching his lips with her own. I see well, then I suppose I can wait one more day, but after that, my lord, I shall show you the true depths of an Uzumaki love, and at that moment both Ray and Naruto felt a powerful spike in chakra not so far from them, which immediately ruined their moment and returned them to full seriousness. That chakra spike it came from the park of red leaves. It's almost like there is a battle happening there. Ray said, as her sensory abilities kicked in. There is a battle, and one of my best generals is waging it with his troops, without me knowing anything about it. Naruto added, as he immediately recognized the chakra of Naomasa before his senses picked up the signatures of the people he was fighting against. Well, now this is interesting, we best pay a visit there right away. I have a feeling that Naomasa has prepared quite a gift for us. At the same moment. Ugh. Kushina groaned as she tried to slash at Naomasa, yet he parried with his spear and then moved it away before kicking her away. You are getting a bit slower, Kushina. Do not tell me that the cushy life in Fire Capital and now in Konoha has softened you up so much. Naomasa taunted as he pressed on the attack while his red devils were engaging the rest of Konoha shinobi, keeping them occupied. And this is the infamous Red Death of Konoha. I would have thought you would be able to at least keep up a decent pace, not lag behind like this. He locked weapons with her again, with Kushina finally having a chance to speak up. What are you trying to accomplish here, Naomasa? Do you honestly think that with such a small force you can take us down? Soon enough we will overpower you and get out of here before any more of your reinforcements arrives. Kushina assured him, with Naomasa smirking to her. Well, then it is a good thing that my reinforcements are already here. At that very moment, he and his red devils disconnected from their enemies, distancing themselves, and in the next moment, golden chains flew towards all of the shinobi, entering their chakra systems and paralyzing them. General Naomasa, it would see that you have been quite busy this afternoon, snuffing out such interesting rats. Naruto Uzumaki, daimyo of the Land of Water, made his appearance with Ray Uzumaki, who casted those chains out of her hand. Care to share why you did not feel it to be necessary to report the presence of Konoha's shinobi here right away? My apologies, Millard, I did not wish to make such a claims without first making sure that I was correct in my suspicions, and when I was, I decided to use this opportunity to lock them in one place and not let them disperse. Naomasa reported. I have already dispatched for the reinforcements covertly, but I did not expect you to show up in person to deal with them. You've made quite a spectacle for me and Ray to observe VR sensory abilities, and once I sensed who exactly you were dealing with, I felt it required my personal attention. Naruto responded as he stepped closer to Konoha's shinobi, looking at them with a curious eye. Well, I have been expecting Konoha to send at least someone here for quite a long time now, but I must admit that I was not prepared to see such an ensemble. Naruto said with a smile. Who are you? Jiraiya spoke with hardship through paralyze, with Naruto turning his head to him. What's the matter, pervy sage? Is your memory failing you, or you have difficulty realizing the truth, especially when it stares right at you? Naruto asked of him as he moved closer. Well, let me dispel any and all doubts that you may have about me. In our very first meeting, I had to chase you around all of Konoha just to make you train me, and even then when you trained me, all you did teach me was a summoning jutsu and nothing else at the time. Oh, and to get me to make a proper one, you threw me into a hole in the ground, with walls of it covered in spikes. I recall Gamabunta being quite displeased when I had summoned him there just to save myself from becoming stain on the dirt. Jiraiya's eyes widened when he heard him say all this. And no, it cannot be Naruto. Jiraiya asked of him, with Naruto smiling to him. Yes, Jiraiya. It is me, the one and only Naruto Uzumaki, the one after whom you were chasing now. Naruto responded to him and the others, revealing to them all who he really was.